call the meeting to order. I'm glad that everyone was able to realize we're in a different location. We are here so that we are able to record and, I guess, stream also for the summer. So with WAVM students not being around and available, we aren't able to do that if we are at Fowler. So this is a nice in-between solution. So
thank you, Emily.
yeah. Emily is doing our tech work back there. So we just need to let you know that we are recording, and if anyone else is recording tonight, we just need to, for Massachusetts general law, just make everyone aware that that's happening. So if you are, you could just raise your hand, and then everyone would be aware. Very good. All right. So our first item on the agenda is we are reorganizing tonight. This is our first regular meeting as a full board. I have only been serving as acting chair at this time until we were able to do this. So here we are. So the way that this will work is that I, as acting chair, will open the floor to nominations. You're welcome to nominate people. We then consider the nominations. We can then take a vote at any point. You're welcome to make a motion. And then the person who does become chair, they then take over, and they would then be the one that would then take the votes for vice chair and run the rest of the meeting. And given that I was acting chair, I'm very happy to help facilitate that process as we're going forward with this particular agenda until we transition, depending on how things turn out. Any questions about that? Okay. So I am going to take nominations then for chair for the fiscal year 20.
I'd like to nominate Bethlyn to be the chair.
I second.
All right, so then before we take, we're not really at this point, as far as I understand it, unless I'm wrong, we're not seconding, we're not doing it's just we're nominating people and seeing who would like to be considered, and then we would move into some discussion, and then we could.
I think you can do it either way. So as long as you have the second, you do want a second for the nomination, but I do think that you need to call for nominations at least twice, if not twice.
Yeah, that's what obviously you want to make sure you get everyone on board. Yeah.
So
thank you.
So I would just go into any other nominations.
There are other nominations that we have for the board this evening. We will also go into discussion further for consideration of why you would nominate or consider someone.
Thank you for facilitating good role.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I concur. You're doing a really good job and really making it collaborative, which I really appreciate. So,
I guess.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good question.
You don't have to say.
I feel like I've been a little hesitant for a number of reasons. In part because I feel like it is a role that requires time, and that is something that I feel like the way I've seen it being done, I just don't know that I have the amount of time that would take. But I feel like we as a group, we just all had a training on Tuesday around developing our own operating procedures as a group, and we kind of had started gelling in any case as a team. And as part of that, it's been I think that it's more of what I've been doing as acting chair was facilitating to ensure we all had the information and we each had our piece and our role, and that we delegate as things arise, and everyone takes the lead on that thing, and then we try to make sure there's communication and clarification where we need it, and that includes with the agenda and setting the agenda. And
I think also the part that I don't know how it was done behind the scenes last time or a few years, but
yeah.
I think if we are able to set clear expectations of kind of shared, I am available for AM stuff, that might help frame that collaborative, flow a little bit. And I know we had the opportunity to get the training, and there's so I think as we're all working on it, right now there's just a lot going on too,
Yeah,
which is probably a little bit unusual for a summer. But
Yeah.
I think if we are able to define like whose bucket was working on, I think it'll work well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's what I would need to hear from you. You're all feeling that way if I were going to take it on. 1, 2, embracing the idea that people clearly are looking for a change in how, in general, leadership is going, and so I feel like so far we've been committed to that, but I want to recognize that and honor that if I were to be chair, and include, really make sure that what I have, my historical knowledge is used to that end, to be able to really make sure that we're to help facilitate that change and as opposed to that knowledge dragging it down.
No, I think there's 2 things for me that are important for whoever's chair. Would be that 1, we clearly need to embrace that change is okay.
Yeah.
And make really thoughtful, deliberate decisions based on that. And the idea of, and this has come up a couple of times, that consistency or continuity. But I think that to an extent, having a little bit of a break or a change in how things were done in the past should be welcome. And it may feel uncomfortable a little bit as we kind of all find our groove, but I think it's kind of where we need to slowly gravitate towards.
Or more quickly, even.
Yes, well, maybe not so slowly.
Just by virtue of having a new group, it allows us that that chance to kind of reset to do some of that and not have it just end. So,
And you have to make sure that you are delegating.
Right.
In the past, there's been some times where people have felt like they had, as chair, they had to really take on the lion's share, and that's not what we're supposed to be about. So we will all help.
Because I see it as more of a facilitation to try to help make sure nothing falls through the cracks and that things are running smoothly and things get put in the place they need to get put, and so that we're all on the same page and can make the best decisions we can make, whatever they may be, even if we're not agreeing on them, which is healthy and good. I guess the only other thing then is just helping make sure, because I myself sometimes, you can see right now, I process. And there are times when we may need to focus and consider things on a higher level and then do some of the more minutia. I'm not always don't feel like I'm always good at that. So I'm hoping that we together could kind of try to catch ourselves too and do what we can to whatever we take. And I think we'll get a feel for this, but things we could take offline so it's not all.
Yes. And I think in our discussion the other night when we talked about planning ahead of time and having the agenda come out, sooner rather than later, and trying to have our materials available prior to the meeting for everyone, or at least available at the meeting for everyone, and then also doing annual scheduling of specific topics at each meeting, depending on whatever is, like budget would be September, but maybe school safety would be another one or something like that. So I think that when we start getting these things in line, I think it's going to ease up a lot of maybe the stress that previous chairs have felt. And that will help to also direct the conversation so that we aren't just
Right. I think that's part of it. Yeah, I can see that, and I agree. Are there any other considerations of that? Because I just think that this being a new thing and recognizing that some of you have different perspectives around the community perspective around this, I want to make sure that's all brought forward before we vote.
I guess I just want to make sure that, being a chair, that we all at least bring our information that you are the go-to.
Right.
That's the important piece too, that none of us are kind of going off on our own heart in the right place and all of that, but that we're funneling it to you, that it starts from you, that it ends with you, so that we're at least all on the same page.
Yeah, and I think we did talk about that the other night, where it was the idea of if you have someone that's able to kind of see where there may be redundancies and and be able to do the FYIs back to, I think the other important thing about that is that we're making sure that we're getting the loop back to everyone, so that we're adhering to open meeting law, but also providing information and that's streams to everyone.
I think that'll, developing protocol will help that.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's where we're kind of, that gap is, and I think that will help with those, it's just kind of what we learned the other night, but I think that will really fill up these gaps.
Yeah.
Well, and also prevents 2 or 3 people doing the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Without meaning to, but we have a lot going on right now. Yeah.
Or inadvertently contradicting each other, but.
Yeah. Which we went, which can happen when there's so many moving parts.
Right.
All right. Are there any other? With those considerations, then I feel like if we're all agree with that, then I would be happy to consider to take on being chair for the year ahead. So and then I will take.
So I think you should do a formal vote. So we have a nomination and a second for Beth Lynn as chair.
Yeah.
Call for all in favor, all opposed.
As you can see, I will continue to learn as chair.
This is my favorite. I love parliamentary procedures, so I got to that. That's all good.
Okay, so I guess then I take a vote on if we would like for me to be chair for FY20.
Yes.
All in favor?
Okay. Well, thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity. I just feel I would like to now go to vice chair. So, nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Natasha.
I second.
Okay. Do we have
Look at me, I didn't want to say something.
I would call
call
are
for
there
a
any other
second
nominations?
round?
Yeah.
Yes. Are there any other nominations?
So hearing none, you can move into
Okay,
closed
now we
session.
may move into discussion. I'm getting my chair coaching.
If there's no discussion, we can move
Do you
to-
have anything that how you feel about that? It'd be nice to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think that, I think you and I will work together, and I think that, I think I would welcome everybody here, actually. So, I'm fine with it. I mean, it's a juggle, you know, I work, so I think that, but again, getting, helping you and supporting you forever. And, I do think the community appreciates having a good balance for the mutual goals, so, so I would be fine with it.
And I think that the idea of, to that point, making sure that we're kind of clear on availability, it might be something too that we put online somewhere so that we all kind of know what our general availability is, because
I wonder if, because we're thinking about planning, and we kind of, you know, getting organized with like a calendar, you know, or, I know summer is a little tricky, but like if there's certain things might be helpful, yeah.
You can do.
Thinking about that, long-term planning.
Okay.
Be helpful to kind of keep us organized.
Especially when there's things that are unplanned, you know, things that come up, just to know like what people's schedules look like generally. If,
Yeah.
you know, if you're more available in the morning, the middle of the day, so that you can call on people to say, gee, we've got this crunch thing.
Right.
You know, are you available? It'll be very productive.
and that all kind of goes to protocols.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
But also, I think it would be nice, at least for this summer, to maybe plan out like who's away for vacations
Yeah.
or business trips or whatever, so that we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this has been so active. Like, so
Yeah.
we haven't really needed, we have training, we have, you know, Meadow stuff going on, and so it's,
I think this is a discussion for another time.
Yes, I think that we can talk about the protocol stuff
yeah.
separately and that's planning.
Thank you.
And so we are allowed to do that via email without worrying about violating open meeting law.
Wasn't one.
All right, so I'm going to take a vote then and see all in favor of Natasha being our vice chair for FY20.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, so then we're onward and upward. The third thing is designation of the liaison roles and subcommittees. So, with consideration of this, we are in change. I think that we are looking at what do we feel like at this point we can designate based on people's preferences. What we've done for procedures so far is people just ranked based on kind of current stuff, what they would like to be considered for, and technically the chair is the one that appoints, but once again, we've been doing very collaborative process around that. So we are also considering changing what the subcommittees are and the liaisons' roles, adding, revising, shifting. So I think that based on my understanding, budget is one of the most important ones to more immediately designate.
At least, yeah, just because the finance committee has come up with their two people, the board of selectmen, and last couple of years we've actually started meeting in the summer for us.
I think there's a meeting, Jen, you and Michelle meeting with Greg on Tuesday.
Yep. Greg.
I'd like to volunteer to be on the budget subcommittee because I've done it the last 2 years. And as Ken was hoping too, was to have, one person that, has the history and then potentially a new person. I don't know if anybody else is.
What do you guys feel about that?
I think Lydia, I'd like to see Lydia maybe join Mary on the budget.
I think that's great. Budget does take time, so I'd already considered that. For me, I haven't been on budget, and it was a consideration for this year. But if I do, given I've taken on chair before, in my head it was an if I did, but now having done that,
A lot of time and everything.
yeah, and so it would be wonderful to have. I think it would be really great, Lydia, for you to be able to a fresh perspective on that. Would be really helpful. So we don't need to vote on that because I just designate. So I'm going to let you two are now budget subcommittee for the year ahead.
Get going, thank you.
Okay, and then
So I received feedback from 3, so we're just waiting for 2 people, and then you can make a decision. Oh, did you? Oh,
I
okay.
think everybody's filled in.
Oh, I haven't. Okay, it must have been since 3 o'clock this afternoon. Sorry. Written? Well, actually, because I think the chair will take it from here.
Yeah, she has, I think,
I did, yeah. So
did you send the table of them?
It's on the drive.
Oh, it's on the
Right, it's on the doc down, yeah.
Look at you all using the drive.
We
Good work.
You
You did.
I told her about Miles actually helped her, but she.
Look at you.
Madam Chair, if I might make a recommendation that you
Yes.
also possibly talk about the policy subcommittee because we do have some policies that need to be reviewed.
Yes.
So that might be another one to prioritize.
And I would like to be on that. This one.
Yeah, I was.
Usually it's 1.
Oh,
Yeah. So
you only get one
Well,
subcommittee?
No, you do 2.
I thought it was 1 subcommittee and 1 liaison.
No, there's too many committees.
I don't think that's gonna work, there's not enough of us.
Yeah.
5.
Because there are
5.
5, you're right, and then there's 2.
Bethlen and I were on
Oh,
policy
yeah,
last
okay.
year.
Yeah.
And you have another one?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing to consider when we're looking at what we're revising, what we're adding, is where we might be able to streamline and have synergy and kind of combine things together because there are only so many of us.
I think also in the event that someone can't,
Right.
availability, it helps me to have.
So, looking at what's been shared with me. There you go. Alright, she's giving it to me because I don't know why. Okay. So I apologize because I didn't realize this was all done for me to be looking at. So I think since you looked at it, since you put it together, it would be.
You only just.
Yeah, I know, but
No,
but nonetheless,
Yeah.
you want to be prepared. So I think that Lydia, and I don't understand your system here. Why don't you explain what you did, Mary? And then
Oh,
you
well,
can
I
help
just
us-
did, basically what I did was first, second, and third choice for each, I asked each person to do first, second, and third.
Yours is first, second, and third, right?
Or
Tomorrow's
for
is.
the,
some
I
people
did
did it for
5
five.
She
here
wants to be-
and this
right.
5 down here.
and also for the liaisons.
Okay. So how about this? So let's set policy, and then let's just talk through the rest for now, and then
I think that's good, because
do the rest on August 1st.
Yeah.
Does that sound good to you? Even I could just say via email, here's what I'm seeing,
Right.
and then if you disagree, so that's us not going through the.
I know
mission.
the CPAC one is the other more pressing one, because I
Yep.
know that they've been
Right,
trying.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And since that's a definite, we could probably do that tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's,
So, looking at policy, it's Lydia and myself that had that as our second choice. So I think that if that's cool with everyone, then I would put myself and Lydia on that one. I feel like we want to, there's a lot to consider with policies this year. Okay, very good. Then we'll be on that. And then the last one is CPAC and, oh, you have the touch screen. So,
I think Laura should definitely be on that, right, because you've been on it.
I think if you still want to do it, I think, I don't know if it's your first choice or not. but-
I didn't end up doing that with the liaisons, so let's just talk it through. So,
I
Natasha,
would really like to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mark
Well,
definitely
yeah.
should.
and then Natasha, you're going to those meetings.
yeah, I have that. Yeah, I
So-
don't go to all of them, there's a couple that I haven't been to.
Well, that was part of why you were having two liaisons for CPAC was
Right.
partially to
To help it, like,
Yes,
it's
right.
backup, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, but,
So-
yeah, I would like to do it.
So I do feel like I was I feel very engaged with that one, but I do feel like at some point I have to say, like, all right, if I'm gonna make sure I'm doing chair right, then there's something I need to pull from, but I do want to stay like understanding and like what's happening with CPAC, but maybe if you two want to be the liaisons, and then we can see how that's going and if it's useful for me to be engaged in something, but I think we can only really have two school committee meetings members there in any case.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I did notice that you had, you know, prioritized
Yeah.
it that way, so.
Yeah. okay. All right, so let's do that. So then you two will do CPAC.
I might suggest, I think, Natasha, are you a board?
She already looked into that.
Are
I
you
did,
okay
yeah, I
with that?
checked with-
Is that okay for us to do that? Okay.
She had like emailed about it a while ago now.
Yeah, I had,
It's not a conflict of interest?
nope, not to be on the school committee and CPAC board, no. I did check it, and yeah, I checked with, the town, also the charter, it's not a conflict because the CPAC board is not an elected rule, in the town, and the district, the state ethics, because they're not paid, and one not benefit, not using the resources of the elected.
Perfect. Okay, excellent.
Okay. Great. So then the plan moving forward, I appreciate that. Sorry. I'm getting-
No, that's,
Agenda mode.
it was
Okay.
good, because it has been asked, so it was good to put it out there.
Great. So, any other considerations about what we've decided thus far? Anything else you feel like needs to be prioritized?
The only thing that I was thinking of is the liaison for the schools.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
The school
'cause-
councils.
Well, I don't know if it's really needs to be school councils or just school building, because I think it allows more flexibility if it's not specific, like maybe the PTO, or I don't know, that might be outside of just the council, if we want to think of that. And the agreement of future committee can liaison with them, and then not the school council, or it just allows flexibility by taking it to be building specific. I don't know, I have really strong feelings in having it specifically for the school council.
I'd want us to definitely prioritize the school council because, for
Yeah,
obvious
that would-
reasons, because they are part of the whole.
Right.
And they haven't been utilized the way they
Right.
should be.
But I like your idea of having it combined, building and school council.
Right, so it kind of opens
Do
it up a
anything
little
more
bit.
than that,
Yeah.
if you try and do too much, you're not gonna get anything accomplished. We're all gonna be pretty damn busy. So maybe to have that combination.
Do you think okay with having it like build the building, not, okay,
School
but
council
prioritize
slash
the school
building.
council,
Yeah.
but, okay.
The idea of getting that building committee set up at Fowler and the high school, similar to Green Meadow, yeah, so, be good. Might not have to go on those tonight.
Well, yeah. So one thing that had been to be considered is, and before we finalize these, we have August 1st meeting, and then we have our goals. Like a few days after that, we have our
So
goals.
August first meeting?
Yeah, I'm a few days after that. We have our goals and priorities workshop.
Right.
So maybe at that workshop that it becomes clearer how we want to organize the rest of those. based
We
on.
want to make any changes to the.
Yeah,
site.
I mean, that's what I'm thinking. We could talk further, maybe what we do is we designated some people to look back at what they've got, think about, we're gonna start prepping for that workshop, so maybe we'll look at what goals and priorities are, and then at the August 1st meeting, we could talk further about how we wanna be organized and then check it once we do our goals and priorities. How's that?
So
August 1st, we could have another discussion about it as far as what we think we're gonna outline it to be, trying to keep in mind that we don't want too many and trying to consider that. Since that way we're already gonna be prepping for the goals and priorities also and kind of getting in the frame for that. And then we can see at the August, is it the 5th the training is? Then we can look at whether or not we want to do that. That sound good?
just the only timeline I'm thinking of as we're talking about school councils, I know incorporating, the idea was that we would incorporate them more in the budget conversations, and I know Michelle said it was earlier, that would be done, plus their schedules have to be set also earlier, and they have to have a meeting in a certain amount of time. So I'm trying to,
Usually their meetings don't start until September anyway.
depending on what it's, I think it's like 40 days or a certain amount of days when school starts, but we also have to bring out a new principal.
So I think in terms of the budget process, when we've done this in the past, where the first meeting of the school council or shortly thereafter is the budget meeting, which would be September at the very latest beginning of October. And so just to give you that sort of timeline.
And maybe that means that we should be discussing in our August 22nd meeting what we need to make sure is happening in order to be for them to have a meaningful discussion. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Anything else on that? Very good. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to move into the Green Meadow update, and we do have some Green Meadow Future Committee folk here who had tried to have a meeting themselves, and unfortunately it wasn't posted and they weren't able to have it. So we had a couple things, and then I do want to make sure that you all, I don't know if you want to start by reporting it or if you'd like us to kind of share, and then you could fill in so that you're not doing all the talking. I don't know what you'd like to do.
I think it would probably be best to hear what you have to say. I think one of the things that we would like to do is to try to help facilitate getting the word out to the community about the status of the work at Green Meadow. And without us knowing the status, it would be difficult for us to help with that. So it would be best to hear from you guys first.
Very good point. Okay.
So maybe Lydia.
Did you share the report that I did regarding our meeting on Monday, or?
Yeah, do you think that? I think that would be helpful. If you would like to give some of the highlights of what happened there, and then I'm going to also just pull up those points that you have provided, Josh, to make sure that we're looking at those.
Okay, so Morrow and I have been meeting with, before it was Dr. Girardi, and now that he's gone, it will be Jen Gaudet, with Greg and Justine St. John. And then Monday, we met the new project manager for, sorry, I'm just trying to find the report that I sent to everybody, but we met with the new project manager, who is, his name is Bill Goddard. Apparently, he's known in the town. I don't know him, but he came highly recommended. He and his son, Bill Goddard Jr., are both working at the school, overseeing the projects that are currently going on and continuing. We are continuing to use the same contractors that Michelle Resendez had set up to do the work that needs to be done. They're just going to oversee and coordinate and manage it now, so that Kyle doesn't have to check in all the time, Michelle doesn't have to oversee it, and we have, boots on the ground. So either Bill or his son will be there every day, overseeing the work and providing status updates. The chain of command, or chain of communication, is going to be, Bill will report to Greg. Greg will then report to Justine, who will share the information with the Board of Selectmen as needed. Greg then reports to Jen, and Jen will report to Morrow and I, and then we will share with the rest of the school committee as needed. And then Jen will share with Michelle. And in reverse, it will go back through the same channels, so that we don't have a whole bunch of people sending emails to each other. Once the chair receives the information, it will go to the Green Meadow Future Committee. So that way it's gone through all the proper channels, and we haven't missed anybody, and we haven't duplicated efforts and whatnot. My notes from that meeting I sent out last night. As soon as they are approved, I will, Beth will have a copy, but as soon as they're approved, she will forward them to you. And in it, I think there are like 16 photos that I took of the progress that's being made and the work that still needs to be completed. Bill feels very optimistic that we are going to be able to complete the work on time. His working deadline right now is August 9th. He wants to be done. He does realize that he could potentially have that weekend, but he's hoping to not. Now, that's barring any unforeseen issues, and we had them meeting on Monday prior to the electrician coming in. And Michelle, are you going to speak to that, or do you want me to speak to that, or?
I mean, it's really that, from what I understand, it was because the amount of demolition that we were required to do then sets us into a different standard on what we have to update and come to code with. And because of that, our electrical estimate has now went up to $43,000.
What was it before?
$5,500.
Now, and the only reason why we have any delay is because we have to get three
We have to get
bids.
three, not three bids, we have to solicit three companies to come in. And Bill has been working on that. He already solicited one who sent us a response saying that due to the time frame, he's not able to do it. So we're working on just that final one before we can move forward with the electrical work.
So it's unforeseen issues like this that we may come up against, but we are doing our best to try to circumnavigate or make it past any of these obstacles. And Bill is going to be so happy, helpful in facilitating that, because I don't think, other people have the time or the wherewithal to be overseeing this stuff. They are installing LED lights in all of the kindergarten rooms and in the hall. They've salvaged the fluorescent overhead lights in the pre-K area. Sinks have been taken out and will be replaced after plumbing, like a lot of the shut-off valves were rusted through or corroded. They needed to be replaced. So once all of that stuff is retrofitted, then they can reinstall the sinks. I'm trying to think of what else. All of the drop ceiling grids have been put in. They are going to fog everything prior to the ceiling tiles. Ceiling tiles will be installed last. That's the last thing. So I know that people were worried that the fogging wasn't going to happen in the right order, but it is. It's all taken care of. The deep cleaning will happen. And I think that's pretty much it for update.
The only other thing on here was the MOU.
Oh, and so then there's the question of the MOU going forward, the agreement between the school district and the town. Greg is currently interviewing candidates for DPW director. Once the director is on board, then they will interview and hire a facilities manager. Their hope is that the facilities manager will have to spend 75% of his time on the schools and 25% of the time on the town. And so that is to help avert any future issues like the one that we experienced recently. Now, the timeline for that, we don't know. We're still trying to figure out the MOU, but I think Josh, I think we're probably going to go with the suggestion that the perimeter of 5 feet around the building is gonna be considered school, and everything within that perimeter is school, and then everything outside that perimeter is town. But again, it hasn't been finalized. That is something, I think, Jen, are you and Greg working that out, or is he gonna wait till the new superintendent?
I don't know, I can ask him next week when we meet. We've been exchanging emails with
Can I
him.
ask a question about the 25 to 75%?
Yes.
So how exactly is that measured, really? Is that like out of the day, how many hours per day?
Yes.
75% of the hours will be on site, and then 25.
Well, I don't know if it'll be 20, but it's 75% of his time is dedicated to school-based whatever.
And I guess I'm wondering how do
How do you quantify that?
right? Like I don't know how granular you get. Like how you're here from this hour to this hour,
So
or
when we've had, and I can work with Greg on this, but when we've had positions in the past that were shared between buildings, for example, we often relied on the employee to make a schedule that worked for them to ensure that they were able to do the things that they needed to do. So rather than like a punch clock, I'm going to be in this building for so often. So I think it would be more of job responsibilities. Here are the things that need to be done, and then we observe and whether those things are happening. So the job responsibilities, I would think 75% of them would be overseeing school buildings, and 25% would be supporting the DPW work at the town. Would be my assumption of how that would happen.
I think what I'm hoping to avoid would be that we get like like sometime, I'm not available, and at what point do we then shift, or how can we assess that?
I have to say for the last assistant facilities manager, he wasn't the facilities manager, there was never an issue in terms of when we called and asked for questions, he was certainly always available. So I think that would be some of the management pieces, that if a school employee is finding that the facilities director is not available, then that would be floated up to the superintendent to be discussed with.
And I think utilizing school dude is also
Yep.
going to help in tracking time and
Action and tasks and all those
Yep.
pieces.
Yeah, I would be more task focused than
Time.
time focused.
Yeah.
And who is that person going to report to? Is it going to be to Michelle, or is it going to be straight to?
My assumption would be that it would be a similar structure of what we had before, where that person works with Michelle because she oversees facilities for the district, but reporting to the DPW director, and then that person to,
Kind of like a dotted line
Yeah.
situation.
yeah, yep.
That will be able to be, I think, one of the things that we need to make sure that's clearly delineated in the MOU.
yes.
I also wanted to ask, like, part of the MOU, does it have a way, something unexpected that, maybe someone's unavailable, that we have some type of contingency where we need to outsource something? For like a health or safety issue that, like, say they're, it comes up to one of those times that they're not available, but we need action to happen within a certain period of time. Is there anything built in?
To school dudes?
No, maybe to the MOU that can be built in and say, if in the event of whatever that we outsource, if we need maintenance, launch, whatever.
Yeah, I'm sure that can be put
Or
into
like
the MOU.
something that we just, have something the school is not totally, at the mercy of just waiting. If there's
We
an
do have
urgent
to look at
issue.
the budget, though.
Yes.
It's not something that,
Right.
we can just carte blanche.
Right.
No, not carte blanche, but I'm just thinking like, if we want to need something with ticks and the town could do something with ticks right away, or I don't know. I'm thinking of how this year went, and
What I would be careful of, and obviously as you work out the MOU in that capacity, is that if you are putting things in the MOU that says, if this person is not available, the school shall or the school will, then that's putting it into a situation you could imagine when we are not in a collaborative environment where they're saying we don't have time, you need to, and that would increase the facilities budget sort of exponentially within the schools. So I think it's worth having the conversation of what happens if. But in terms of quantifying that, I would just be thoughtful about what that language looks like.
not necessarily putting it on the school's budget, on the
But
town.
I understand. So you could advocate for that language. I would imagine that if I were sitting in Greg's shoes, that I would be feeling the same way about then the schools are just going to be coming to me and asking me to go outside for all of these pieces. So I think it's worth having the conversation about what is a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, the urgency. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we don't lose.
We can set parameters.
Yeah.
Like the sense of urgency is there that
Yep.
we have the ability to.
I do wonder if, like, it again, I don't want to pull from beyond what people, but Josh does have, I'm sure, a bunch of expertise, and if you'd be willing to share in relation to some of that, I'm sure that would be very helpful.
Yeah, the dynamic you're describing is what I have operated under professionally for over a decade, so I can share with you how that all works. Everything you're describing about the MOU seems on point with what I was expecting. The concerns that Natasha was bringing up really are, the school committee reserves the right in any community to do what they need to do to maintain a safe and healthy environment. So if you can't provide that under normal means, you are well within your rights to do what you have to do to deliver those services. The bottom line is that the schools are the priority in any community. They're a more vulnerable age group. That's the way it works. It's never been an issue on my end. I think like Ms. Gaudette was saying, it's really more about establishing the responsibilities and making sure there's clear lines of communication, reporting, and who's ultimately responsible for each other.
Anything else about any other questions about that particular piece? I think there was a question that came up when you first sent that out around how often communication for that through that reporting structure.
So, Bill and Greg would like to meet with us weekly, and we just have to find a time when everyone's schedule will allow for that. They were hoping Tuesday or Wednesday. Monday is everyone's busy day because you're coming back from the weekend, and they want to do it early enough in the week so that there is an issue. They still have Thursday and Friday to work on it.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say, just because Con had asked me when I first walked in that the teachers union be included in one of those walkthroughs because they're looking to do a walkthrough next week.
Yes.
Next week. So whatever is scheduled for next week, if we could include them, and see, I told you.
Thank you.
I just
Just
had
to
a
pass
question.
that along.
The electrical, it's a lot more intensive than.
Yes, so we have to.
So are we sure we're still working with the timetable? Because at what point?
So for timetable wise, I believe they can still get it completed. The only thing that's holding us up is that we have to get the solicit 3 different bids because it's over the $10,000, and that's our.
A little bit about that August 9th.
According to them, I will say, I know that you had said Bill's date was August 9th. I did have a conversation with Kyle earlier today where he was talking about he would really feel a lot better if we pushed off teachers coming in until the 19th, that Monday. He really would feel more comfortable just having that last weekend in case, he finishes on the 9th and then there's something that the custodians need to do. I think that's something we should probably talk about now, because I feel like we want to get that information out to the teachers that the date has changed from the 15th to the 19th.
Right.
Yeah,
And like
that
I
came up last time, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, this meeting was Monday, and a lot has happened just
Correct.
this Monday.
Yes. Yeah. And I also wanted to say I did put in that email as well, but because of the codes and everything, the fire alarms are actually going to probably double as well.
What was the initial?
It was so originally what we paid was $2,500. I doubled that to cover myself, which in turn they told me I need to double it again.
Double your double?
Yeah, double my double. So they said he can't imagine that it would go beyond $10,000, which saves us from having to do the bids. But he's still waiting from the estimate from the alarm company, the fire company.
Would that be a different company than the electrical?
Yes, it's separate. It's separate company. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw something out there because I know Will Doyle has his sanctuary building, and getting the fire okay really put him back because I just get worried that extra piece that there may be included from the very beginning so that we're not
I believe they
waiting on
did.
them.
I believe they did. They were the fire department and the inspectors were the ones that went through the walkthrough with them, and it was needing to add strobe, which it wasn't required before because we were grandfathered in, but now, so, in those kind of things, and it does, those things do come into play with the occupancy, so, you know, they're,
Throw that out there, that make
Sure.
sure that they're like right in sync
Sure.
with everything.
Yep.
because they really
yeah, and I believe Bill has been in contact with them, according to our conversation before, so.
Josh, do you want to?
I share Mary's concern on that. From a fire alarm perspective, adding new devices typically in a system that's a non-addressable fire alarm system you currently have in there. If you are required to bring it up to current code, it would require addressable devices. I would confirm whether or not the fire department requires an upgrade to the fire alarm panel. If that's the case, not only will it become quite a bit more expensive, but it's a much longer lead time. Hopefully, they're just going to require the individual device swap outs, but the amplifiers in those old panels oftentimes can't produce the power necessary to power the combo speaker strobes. It's just, it can be a bit of a can of worms. The electrical, same thing. I'm sure you guys can get the proposal quick, but you know what you may find, and hopefully you don't. But you know your low bid may not be able to go as fast as your higher bid. So
We can't even find anybody else to bid, honestly, at this point, with our time frame.
I can help you with that if you need it.
We would welcome it. And Greg actually offered his help as well, because he used to do this kind of thing. And I did put him in contact with Bill. I let Bill know that Greg had offered that, but again, we would welcome any sort of help with it, because we kind of have a very tight
Yeah.
frame right now.
So at what point do we think we need to have a conversation about changing start date? Or do we need are we, like, how are you, is that a conversation?
I mean, I don't think that's a conversation with me. I honestly think at this point that's a
Well, no, just-
conversation with Bill.
When you get information, I guess, about timeline will help make that
Right,
conversation.
I
right.
also think that you want to be cognizant, and I was not involved in the discussion previously about moving the start date. I think you want to be cognizant of looking at this through a critical lens of, you know, if I have a job that's assigned to me, I'm going to do my best to get it done by the date. I'm going to want to make that happen. So just really looking at the realities of what could happen, what will happen. If we're talking about the teachers coming in right now on the 19th, to allow for that to occur, I think we had spoken about opening some classrooms, you know, as they become ready.
Yep.
That's literally the week before school starts. So I think you want to be thinking and making that recommendation and decision, I would say, by the end of the month. And I would assume with these walkthroughs and these meetings, you know, we can talk about those components. I know there were some concerns raised. I don't know the specifics of that with all of the different pieces, but you want to give folks enough time to readjust their schedules.
And I would err on the side of giving more time versus finding out at the last minute for the
Yes.
parents, everybody's working, daycare, everything else, that, you know, we kind of draw a line in the sand, and you know what, if it's ready early, then that's great, but at least everybody's been given the opportunity to make it.
Well, I had staff members at the end of the year asking as well, because they're trying to line up their daycare and those types of things. So it does have a significant impact, and the sooner we can make that decision, if we're worried about this, I think the better.
I would just, I totally agree. I think it's a conversation that we have to have with Bill, since he's the one that's,
Did we ask him to come to our first meeting?
I think it might be too late if
Well,
we need to decide on.
That's one of the
school.
things that we're discussing though when we meet with him every week, so that's something we can always bring back to the table.
Well, if you back to the table, do we think August 1st is soon enough?
I would say that would be the latest you would want to make a
Because
decision.
then maybe it's that, because my guess is that we would need to come together, so we'd have a special meeting to come together and just vote upon that.
It would just be a quorum too, so it doesn't have to be necessary.
Yeah, since I'm essentially gone for the rest of July, then yeah. So let's do that. Assess what we're doing now. You talk to Bill, and we need to do a special meeting to have a quorum to vote on that. We need to do it before August 1st. What do you think the date that would be good to try to do it by, given that we're on July 11th?
email?
I mean, I would say that you're,
I
at the
don't know
latest,
what
you're looking at the week of the 22nd.
Yes. Okay. So at least by August 22nd, we need to make that choice, but it is time sensitive, and as soon as we feel like we have a sense of things, you guys, we can
Are
make a
you,
decision.
you said you're okay, right?
I'm away from the 20th to the 27th.
We don't need to,
Yeah, we don't need everybody here, we just need
to
a
just,
quorum.
yeah, so we can figure that part out offline.
My question is, would we just be talking about the kindergarten starting late? We don't really need
No,
the,
all the classes are all during other places.
everything
No,
a week late.
no, it's just that wing. I mean, the rest of the school I don't feel is going to have, just when they say an occupancy, it's just for that wing, right? Because the rest of the school, am I right?
Well,
There's-
But their stuff is in other rooms,
Yeah,
and if it's
right.
not ready for them to move their stuff into the rooms, then that's gonna hinder.
Where they're
People that
at.
actually are in those other rooms.
We would be able to.
Yeah, but we would be
move
able to
those
move
items
their
out.
stuff into
Oh,
the
we would move
rooms.
those
Do you know what
items
I mean? Like, we would be able to free up the rest of the school, I think.
guess
Again,
that's a
I
question
don't.
for Bill, because
Yeah.
speaking of the fire portion, that could be the whole building that we're talking about being affected, so that's probably. a
I
question
thought
for
they
Bill.
singled out that at one point, sorry.
So I have to run to a speaking engagement. A couple quick things. If you already solicited 3 quotes, even if they refuse to come out, it's considered a non-response.
I know,
All you have to do, even if they hang up on you, that's it. That's one of your 3.
Correct.
So when I've been in binds like this, I call, I say, can you do it? And here's my timeline. You could say, I need a quote within the next 2 hours. And if they say, I can't do that, thank you very much. You write down their name, you're covered.
Right.
So the biggest thing is I would confirm with the inspector and the fire department, get them out as soon as possible to confirm the scope, because that's where you could end up with.
I believe the fire department and the inspector was with them
Okay.
when they talked about the scope and the needed. It was the wire inspector. Does that sound correct?
For
The
electrical.
building inspector, and I believe it was the fire department that was with them.
Okay.
But we would have to talk. Yeah, it was Bill who met with them. I didn't meet with them, so.
I guess the question is, could we open up the rest of the building and just have the kindergarten wing
Correct.
be late is
Yep.
the question.
But if you could email me what you had said earlier about the panel or whatever that was, just so that I'm asking the right question, that would be great. Thank you.
Is there anything else you feel like you want to say before you go? I'm sorry, I forgot that you had mentioned via email.
No, that's okay.
Pop out.
I don't think so.
I have some other,
Just
I
sent
have
them
more,
the
I have
text.
more questions.
Oh,
but
thank you.
If you guys wanna continue, I don't have the time constraint, so.
Okay. So, media communications. I had the question about just delays because of electrical issues, depending on what that meant, but we're going to talk that through.
Sorry, and the pods were supposed to be emptied and picked up today.
Correct. They were not picked up today, but that's because the company, they are emptied. It's just the company, because I called them, I'm like, what the heck, I'm not paying for these anymore. But they said they have to pick them up in phases.
Oh.
So they'll be picking them up within the next couple of days. But it doesn't, we're not getting charged for it, so, and they are emptied, yeah.
And so then,
Yeah.
did you want to then ask questions in relation to that piece there? Because I think we had a few other, like, we would talk a little bit about the website. There were a few things that Josh had brought up in terms of, well, obviously consideration of process and milestones, which are things we're talking about right now. Community share out, which sounds like that's something we really want to see, like, what are we putting out to tell people? And then the inner air quality fact sheets, and the RFQ in consideration potentially, and I think this might be a follow-up thing that we need to do in relation to potential of, do we need a structural engineer to look at the pre-K to make sure that we know what the deal is and what that means.
Did somebody come out already with that though?
Wait, for what piece?
Um,
Because we did have a structural engineer come out for the soffit piece to get a stamp on it, and that's what allowed us to finish the ceiling grid and install the soffit.
Yeah, 2 separate issues. One is the corrugated metal rusting out in the classrooms in the kindergarten portion, pre-K.
Pre-K, and I
Sorry,
took
pre-K.
several photos of those that I can share too.
Yeah, it's just a check in the box. We just need to get, it shouldn't be difficult. It would normally be part of the envelope study, but if that's not gonna happen before the start of school, we can just get the structural engineer to come out.
Would that be the same guy, the Dan Bernardi guy or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They can do it.
So if you don't mind sending us an email just with that snippet so we can make sure we get that information right to relay it and see, okay, that would be very helpful. Okay. All right, so those are the pieces I want to make sure I hit before you left in case we needed you.
Thank you.
Get the heck out of here, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
You can do whatever you hear me. Yeah, you might as well, because then people will be sure to be able to hear you. Well, I don't know if, Megan, so just to know, there's website stuff is gonna be discussed. And then the things I just mentioned. So if you had questions about those, you could hold them to see, but if you have other questions related to what we talked about already, I'm more than happy to take them.
I did have a question about, so status update to the community. I know we had talked about sending something in terms of to the parents that have kids in summer programs, like what has already happened. I think that was, there was a draft, I think Courtney put together something and then Bob made some changes. So I just wanted to circle back to that. If that was something, I mean, I know they're already started, but they still might be interested to know. So I feel like that there's like that communication piece with summer programming, parents, or the whole community. If you don't want to segregate, I'm sure other people would want to understand that. But then in your, Lydia, in your conversations in terms of process moving forward, in terms of where that communication to the community is, whether it's going to be just one, in a few weeks, or if you guys talked about that.
Well, are we leaving up to them to communicate? Because I kind of thought that's.
No, so the last time what we talked about is Michelle is at this point in time the one that's understanding. So she was taking on being able to make sure that I think we talked about in last meeting, maybe weekly. That was last week, right?
Right. I haven't gotten. I thought. And
This
again,
is okay.
this
We're
is.
working out this process
do it.
now.
I haven't gotten any specific. I thought that I was going to, from my conversation with Bill originally, that they were going to send me the updates that I was going to forward out. Right now, basically this week I've been getting things kind of piecemeal. So I can reach out again and say, but I didn't know because of the meetings that you were having and the conversations you were having, if it was redundant for me to then,
I think the information should be coming from Jen and not from Bill, but I don't know.
But so you mean for Bill to update me and then me update Jen?
No, well, just because he's supposed to be communicating with Greg, who's then supposed to communicate with Jen.
Oh, okay.
And Jen's supposed to share it with you. Now, that's not to say that you two can't communicate,
Right.
but I'm thinking that the official word that gets shared out is whatever comes from Greg to Jen.
Okay.
And then to you. I don't know. That's just.
I mean,
Different types of communication.
Yeah.
Talking
Right.
There's internal, so that.
Right, yeah, no, I'm
There's
talking about the
community.
stuff that's shared with the community.
Community.
Okay.
Because most of my conversations with Bill is basically about money. I mean,
right.
in like, support, like custodial support and
Like
that
price.
kind of
Well,
thing.
Do you want Michelle to be in the position of having to share that out, or?
I think it's better if Jennifer does it as the acting superintendent.
Mhm.
So what I can do, I just checked my email to make sure I didn't miss anything, which it doesn't appear that I have. I can connect with Greg tomorrow to get an update from Bill. I'll connect with Michelle we can maybe piece it together and make sure that Bill understands what information we need in what fashion so that we can share it out, and then we can do that.
And then do that weekly. Does that seem
That's fine
reasonable?
with me. Yeah. Yeah.
Be great.
The other piece of that, though, is this more immediate thing that's on the table that Bob had kind of
So
revised, and then
I
it's
did
out
see
there.
that. I just saw that email
Yeah.
when you sent it. That's the
Yeah.
first
I was out
time
of town, so yeah.
that's the first time I had ever saw it. I did forward it to Kyle because he kind of had a better idea. I don't have Bill's email, so Kyle's like my go-to person right now. Asking him if there's anything on there because I noticed Bob had said this was relevant at this time. I don't know if my points are still worth putting in here at this point. So I sent it to Kyle. When did you send that?
That was
Yesterday?
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
So I had sent it to Kyle and asked him to read through it and let me know if there was anything on there that had changed or anything else that he wanted to add. We've both been extremely busy the last 2 days, but I can follow up with him again tomorrow. And if he doesn't have any other input, I will send it back to you guys saying that he had went through it and it seems pretty up to date. I had read it and there was a few things that I thought should be added, not necessarily anything taken out, but I think there were things that had happened since she had made that I thought would be great to be added. But again, I just want to run that by Kyle.
Sure.
Or Bill, whichever.
We can try for Friday.
Yeah.
And just for so everyone's on the same page, I apologize that it wasn't clear. So the communication that we're talking about, Megan referenced it as Courtney had started to put together a very nice snapshot of where things are at to be able to go out to the community, particularly folks that are obviously inhabiting that building now and going to be inhabiting the building and the children. But Bob had made some changes to it, and then he left, and it kind of from there.
Fell into a black hole.
So we kind of reinvigorated that thanks to the Green Meadow Future Committee to try to get that going again. But then it wasn't accurate anymore. We weren't clear that it was
outdated.
Yeah.
Does it help at all? I know, again, we're having this parallel thing about the website, that we have. I don't know if that's posting through the news.
We can, once I have a document, I'm happy to post any of those. So I think the priority would be getting that information done. So once we hear back from Kyle, Michelle and I can share that information out, and we can do it that way.
Lydia, I don't know if you have any other additional
Well, yeah,
info
that's
or
what I was gonna
pictures
say.
or.
Maybe we could all work together
Sure.
on that.
Yeah.
I just shared the meeting notes from Monday with you, Jen. and
Okay.
it's I'll
Thank
share it
you.
with Michelle. If that's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
violating
Yeah.
protocol.
No, please
No.
share with Michelle.
I think it's more important to have regular announcements versus worrying too much about detail.
Right, yeah.
So just a summary of,
Get something out
this is
there.
where we are, just so that
And there's a few things you missed to get them in the next week. If it's
Right.
actually happening every week. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Mary. I think that it's just people knowing that something is coming on whatever day, if it's Friday,
Right, so they
that they
know
just
before.
know, and then if they have a question, they know that there's an opportunity for it to be addressed in the next Friday, or whatever day. So my other question is about a community event, because I know we talked about doing something with the grounds, and if that was, if there was any, has there been any more discussion with the town on that, or?
When we have the interim coming on, that doing a community with Tim.
I think you're
I thought-
referring to.
Oh, I'm talking about a clean, cleaning up the
Right, the doing the
outside.
mulch and stuff.
Yeah, mulching, maybe some.
I said, Kyle thought it was an awesome idea and would
Yeah.
welcome any of that. I thought that it was something that, and I totally could be wrong, but I thought it was something that you guys were gonna put out there and try and organize.
Yeah, well, we're happy to do that. Yeah, I
And,
just want to.
So
Yeah.
where that had last gone was,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, not last meeting, but the meeting before.
And I'm sorry because I was gone.
No,
so
no,
I
not
yeah.
at all. Everyone needs a vacation. No, I apologize for that. Where that had been left was that in talking, Courtney, at that point we thought we might, if some of these things aren't going to be able to be addressed, can we have community come in by Friday and take care of some of it?
Oh,
Which were some of the
Before
things that were
summer.
kind of ended up being
Okay.
additional to what had already been discussed as the scope that they were considering trying to before people went in for the summer, before teachers and kids.
I think Kyle mentioned though about the mulching.
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
Yes, and then out of that conversation, because we started that conversation around the community for that, then it became let's consider a community. And at that point it was still within the Green Meadow Future Committee, we'd be more than happy to be the ones to put that on, but it wasn't as immediate a need, so then it kind of wasn't defined any further.
okay.
So if you guys are happy to be the ones to take that on,
Sure.
great.
Okay.
If you would like to consider that we make sure, obviously we put it through all our communication channels,
Yeah.
and then it's just consideration about when we would have that happen and making sure that we the pieces that, the scope, what makes sense to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay,
And I think-
yeah, so
I
that's
think,
the scope.
For
so-
outside, I think a great communication would be Kyle.
Okay.
To be the liaison on that. And I've had conversations with him. I know that he would welcome
Okay.
community help with that. I know at this point, I think the DPW would as well. So I think.
So do you think that we could invite Kyle to our meeting
I
next
think-
Thursday,
I think
and we could
invite
kind of
him to a meeting,
get the
yeah.
scope down, talk about date options, and just kind of
Yeah.
go through all those
Yeah.
details?
And
Okay.
then,
Do we need to talk to the town at all about it anymore, or is that?
weren't you listening?
Can we have to get a volunteer group
Oh, yes,
together
just-
to help get the outside property of Green Meadow spruced up?
Yes, Community Spruce Day.
Yeah. I honestly think Kyle is your best.
Okay, great.
Contact person right at this moment. And,
We don't have to talk to the union, the custodians, or anything like that?
they're not responsible for the outside.
Okay,
It's the
good.
DPW technically right now.
He said to run it through Tim as well.
He's the acting DPW director.
Tim,
Malay.
oh, yeah,
Yes, acting
Run
director.
it through him,
yeah,
since he caught it basically first.
yeah. I would start with Kyle and then
Okay.
ask Kyle to
Check with.
check with him, because
With
Kyle's been
DPW.
pretty much our liaison.
Okay.
Between the DPW and the schools right now.
Okay.
But you could go to Tim directly as well. I just haven't dealt with him, so I don't
Okay.
know.
Either way, you're gonna have to keep him in
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Megan, I'd like
Yeah.
to ask that be, the preschool playground be included with that. I'm in the process of talking with Donna about getting new mulch and sand out there as well, and starting a preschool parents, volunteers to clean up the playground. So I'm wondering,
Okay, can you come to our meeting?
Thursday.
Great.
So come up with a date, come
Yeah,
up with
right.
times.
Date,
You guys
times,
figure out the scope,
scope.
and then we can
Mhm.
put out the word to
Great.
everybody.
Yeah, we'll have it all laid out, so then
Yeah.
it can just
Whether
be.
it's- I'm thinking Saturday, Sunday is probably the best days, but, whether it's 2 days, whether it's just
Right.
one day with a rain delay, if, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So I'm sure you'll get a lot of people.
sounds good.
Can I just piggyback on that comment?
Yeah.
Recently, this was probably a few weeks ago, part of the Green Meadow Future Committee, some teachers, Dr. Girardi, Greg, did a walk around of the facilities, complete facilities. And we looked around, some fencing that was missing, some grading was off, particularly at the preschool playground, teachers, kids tripping because the mulch was significantly different versus the edge, right, that kids are walking on, etc. Really providing some safety concerns. Greg was there, and Dr. Girardi were there. Both were taking action items, etc. I proposed that Bill, who's now the new project manager, kind of connects with Greg on that, takes a full list of action items, and just adds that to the things that need to happen anyways, because some of these things were in clear violation of safety
Greg,
violations.
Bill is only the project manager for the inside,
Okay.
for the wing that's inside. All of our grounds are done by the DPW at this point. So it would be the DPW that we would have to talk with for any of the outside.
This was part of the consideration for Community Spruce Day, is recognizing everyone's beyond tapped right now. What is within a fair consideration for the community to be able to assist with? Obviously not trying to rely on that moving forward is the way to make things happen that need to happen, but
Yes.
it's a fair point.
Yeah, some of these things are, let's say, spruce up, but the spruce up is first somebody needs to say, hey, look, you need to have 6 inches of, let's say,
Yeah, the
mulch,
specs.
right?
Yeah.
Or whatever the material is in the playground. There's only 2. We need to bring in a truck, and for them, we need the community to help spread,
Yes.
right? There is a sewer cover, right, in the field that is sticking out this much, right?
So I believe, sorry,
And
the
these are-
fencing, I believe, has been done, and the rubber on the cover
That's
has
already
also
done.
been done.
So, right, so some of these things might already have
Yeah,
been done.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
I think
Essentially,
we probably all
leaping
don't
in.
know.
So I-
We just
That
need
moves
to
back.
have that list and say what has
Yeah.
been done, what still needs to be done, and who doesn't.
So I think we can do in our meeting. We could have done it tonight, but we weren't able to. But next week, I think that we'll with this when we do the scope, then we can have another list of those safety concerns, those considerations from, and then basically like what's out of scope for a community event, and then we can follow up with.
And I'll send you
what
what's
those
been
are.
updated on the
Great.
outside. I only know that through conversation, but I do know that the fence and the rubber, I think it's a rubber ring you were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, because I didn't even know what they were saying, but now it makes sense that both those things have been completed. So I'll be able to update you on that. I'll just get some more clarification on it.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
So then, one other thing, Megan, I wanted, do we need to have anything in mind about School Dude while you were up?
Oh.
Sorry, you sat down again, or?
I know Michelle is really busy, so she just.
Go ahead.
No, with school. I would still love to talk through the School Dude process.
We did get it together for you. We just haven't sent it to you yet. So I'm sorry.
Process. I know, I'm such a nerd.
So we'll get on it.
Okay.
Colleen had worked on it.
Great.
My fault for not following up, but I made it
it's
to
all
you.
good.
So
Yeah.
we'll send it.
Obviously, the work is the most important thing,
Yep.
but I think that as we get closer to new school year, and we're going to have this new process, and this is how it's going to work. So, yeah, great.
Thank you.
Do you
Yeah.
have an update on like who's gotten trained or who's getting trained and when that's happening? And
So I'm kind of at a little bit of a loss because like Tim has left and Kyle is. So we have been working on some training materials. I'm at a point where I think it's going to be me who's going to train the custodians. I had a conversation with Kyle on Monday about when he thought we would. The problem is our custodians are all like totally strapped out and working endless overtime, and honestly, I feel a little bit guilty of saying like, can you stay another couple of hours after for some training? So it's very.
Getting the place open.
So we've been trying to focus on getting the place open, which is kind of like all hands on deck. I know there's a point next week, and I think possibly the week after, that all the second shift guys from all of the buildings are going over to Green Meadow to do things. So, we're really just trying to figure out the best time. Like Kyle said, if you feed them, it might be better. So, right now they're all doing like the to 6 shift, right? The 10 to 6 shift or something, but all working more than that. So it might be something we're able to do after one of their shifts. We're just so tight these next couple of weeks. So the plan it was probably going to be like the first week of August or the second week of August that we were going to be able to sit with them and do the training. I had spoken with Jen about doing the training with the teachers, the staff, not just teachers, obviously, all staff. And I think we're working that into their PD prior to opening school, right?
We will probably have to do multiple sessions, but
Yeah.
we will have an overview capacity on that first day, and then it'll be an ongoing support of the staff.
And we've created, Colleen's been really good, and we've created some documents that it's for the staff side, it's not necessarily that they need a hands-on training with it, like a how-to guide. It's fairly easy. And you'll get the same document, so let us know how it goes.
Yeah, sure.
So we're hoping that it's not going to be as extensive. I think the staff would be able to pretty much catch on. It's just the custodian piece that we have to really nail down and work on.
Have you thought about like a building? I'm just thinking about the 3 buildings and the 3 groups of custodians and how they're going to be using the software, and there's going to be that learning curve for X amount of time in the beginning. Have you identified maybe like a point person for each building that's going to be?
It would be the lead
The lead
in each
custodian.
building.
Okay.
And I know the lead-in Fowler has actually already started using different school do things.
Great.
And I believe the lead at the high school has as well. I don't believe anyone at Green Meadow has started using it yet.
Okay.
So, and I think we're going to have to
Yeah, and
train-
if you need like an I don't know, if you need an alternate because of how much, just what we're asking them to do this summer, and then I don't want them to not, and then have a new system and for them not to feel supported with like that transition.
Right.
Like that could be just a sticky situation. So,
Yeah, and
anyway.
honestly, like what Colleen and I had talked about when we were sending to you is that it will be great feedback from you if the documents that we set up are clear enough. And from somebody who's never used the system before, it's a great, to have someone come in and try and use it.
Yeah.
So.
My wheelhouse. Love it. Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. And I do want to appreciate that we've had to put other things as priorities first. It's just kind of doing due diligence and making sure that we're considering everything and seeing when we have to shift, and that's just what we do, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's certainly not a judgment. Okay. And appreciate everything that you've been picking up that would normally not be yours to
I think
do.
we're all.
Yes. Well, thank you. Okay. Unless there's anything else on the things we've been discussing, we've been a website for Green Meadow. Natasha's been holding the torch for that, which has been awesome.
Yeah, so I was able to meet with Stephen today, and he did a really great job creating the new home, but it's in its raw form. So obviously amendable. I sent the link over to the Green Meadow Future Committee today, so they can look and see if there's kind of what they're looking for. There's folders that can be added. Right now, roughly, there's a place to house agendas, meeting minutes, and reports. And there were a lot of reports already, documents there, so I was able to move them over into like a historical file for like 2019 and prior year. One of the things, and this is what I had sent over, I asked the Green Meadow Future Committee to look to see on the other website, the Green Meadow Future website, look at the historical documents, because he was confident, or he seemed hopeful that most of the information was also on our website already. So we didn't need to take a lot of information from there, but I didn't validate that myself, but he wanted to see, because it's going to be asking John to get the information. So if there's big discrepancies on reports or something that are not on the Green Meadow district website, we would want to get those from the other one. That, I think we added the contact information, links to, or the functions. Idea would be, it's under families, the family section where you go to the school, Green Meadow, there's a link there, like where they would have like CPAP or the parent advisory. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of learning. The idea also would be that the principal, whenever we have a principal, that would be the one to ultimately get the information. So thinking long term, they have a meeting, they need something posted, they would send it to the principal can put it into the folder, or the principal can share out an email like meeting, this day, and the link to maybe the agenda, however. So again, all in the works, but it is in a way that could be replicated at each school. So the model would be, you'd have another link for each at Fowler and then the high school once they're in a position to do that. There is the image, so we were able to take the image and put that on there, so that image is also maintained. And I don't know, this is the conversation piece that I punted back afterwards. So FAQs, we have the option to amend those, really, at this point. It's easy, what FAQs you might have now in a year might not be relevant anymore, So I think it would be important to know, like, from what you're getting from your meetings, And then we can, there is, I kind of made like a rough section, but we can list, a couple FAQs. Does it make sense to have a document? I don't know, it depends on, how many that you guys have. And I think that's really it. So right now, again, through this transition phase, I'm certainly able to help out, but ultimately, once a principal gets firmly seated, then it will be the ownership of the principal to be able to communicate that out to the community. Did you have? I know we're kind of like had some back and forth email, so I just wanted to see what your thoughts were.
I might have did I miss an email from you? I mean, I saw your email.
Later on, it was just
Okay, I think I might have missed your reply, but I just thought that maybe there was some. A lot of the I reviewed the web. Yeah, I went through the website and I was like, a lot of the stuff isn't really that relevant anymore. It was at one point in time, but I did think that maybe there was value in kind of like a story, like.
Oh, that's the other piece. Yeah.
It was like it's kind of like we all lived it this year, so obviously it's like we know what happened. But I'm thinking about incoming parents, and even like a few years down the road, people didn't necessarily follow it. They don't know the details, and maybe they're not interested, but a place that they could land to say, like, if they get word of it, like, oh, gee, did you hear this wing was shut down a few years ago? And they're like, what are you talking about? And so then a place where they could go and understand, like, at a summary level, like, this is what happened. And then they could have some sort of context there.
I think I definitely, I'm trying to think of a balance, because I was looking over it, and,
we don't need that much detail, right?
Yeah. I don't want it to be a spooky site, I don't want someone to go like, oh my gosh, where are my kids going to school,
I know.
I'm thinking about like future, agreement of future committee, I know this year we all have lived it, so I think it's probably fresh in our minds, but as future families come forward, I don't know how much we want to highlight all the historical pains that we probably all want to block out in many cases.
So I think
I think a balance. I think, how do we balance like what we're working on?
I'm just trying to get it in front of. Well, I'm trying to avoid a situation where people come in and then they start, the rumors start, you know what I mean? Like the chatter, it's like, and then they don't have a place where they can reference some sort of information about this is what happened,
This will be
other than the news.
Yeah.
Like,
right, in the
The
newspaper,
documents of like, that are there. We're not gonna. I want to make sure all the documents are
right
there so people can do their own research of whatever the concern is.
Yeah.
I just am kind of cautious about how much you want to highlight right when you go to the page about.
Yeah, no, I don't mean highlight. Yeah, I just mean up one section, one page, and it doesn't have to be the first page, but yeah, Jen.
What probably is more helpful than what has happened in the past is where are we going moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, it's part when Michelle and I were working on the statement of interest for the MSBA for this year, one of it was to explain some of the deficiencies within the building.
Yeah.
So that may be something that's more helpful for families, is these are the reasons why we're considering building, and we're seeking support to build a new building. And that would be work that would need to be done anyway if we were going to be going for a new building process for Green Meadow. Again, I don't know that decision has been made or not made given the different board conversations this spring, but that might be a useful way of framing it so that it's not sort of continuing to dwell in the past. All of the documentation is there that folks can look at, but this is why this information is important, and these are why the reasons that we need to consider something new.
I think what it might be helpful, because there was a lot on those like the areas that you had referenced.
Yeah.
If there were some that you found that really resonated, that would be helpful. Like if you could send those specific areas that you'd like to see, and then maybe we can find a way to word it in a way that again carries over. Like we're not like washing what happened, but how do we present it in a way that again doesn't spook people. Right when they click on, for families, we got a future committee, and then
Yeah, no, I definitely, I completely agree.
But I want to.
Yeah, I can take a stab. Yeah, I can take a stab at a draft, and you guys can see what
too much in those
you think.
areas
Okay.
To start, so it's obviously it's a work in progress, and I wanted to make sure it is reflective of the true nature of what you guys are working on and information where, you know, people aren't feeling like we're trying to hide anything. It's really,
Right.
it is what it is. You know, Google does wonders when if anyone really wants to, you know, dig deeper, but I mean, all the reports, inspections,
Right.
fines, you know, those they will
Yeah.
be expected to be there, so it will tell, I think it will tell a story on its own, if someone wants to look.
So I think we've raised the considerations. I don't want to.
No, I'm not. I'm done.
Okay.
No.
But I
Just
wanna-
thank you for taking that on, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
When that might be.
It can happen whenever. I mean, right now the website is up. So what I'd asked them to do is just send me like the minutes, because I know it'll be as they're meeting. We want at least the basic communication piece, get that part going. All the historical piece I think can be fixed. And I know Stephen, before I wrote this down, he's reached out to John about. I think he's had some resistance a little bit. I think maybe because we're not right. We're not going that way anymore. And so I think there's, which is why we want to only get exactly what we need, so we don't have to, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think eventually, and I did ask specifically today, the two things was that one, it is very likely the website will not be the website that's there will not be redirected to our website because of some of those concerns that he's not able to get clarification on. So it would be that we need to be very thoughtful in communicating to the community beforehand that we have, this is where we go, but I want to make sure all the information's over there when people can go there. And, the contact information's there right now already, so people can start looking. And then after that piece is, then we will ask to have it sunset, so it won't be accessible any longer. If it doesn't suit our need to just kind of,
Great. Thank you. So you're in conversations with Green Meadow Future Committee, and you'll continue to start?
Update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for taking that on. All right. Anything else about Green Meadow?
I just wanted to say one more thing, and I forgot. With the electrical, they did inform me that, hold on, let me read it. Replacement of LED light fixtures supplied under this quotation may be eligible for utility company rebates. And I remembered them saying something like it was like $50 a
That's
thing.
what Bill said.
Yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there, that although this was a much higher bill, that we may be able to recoup some of that through some rebates. Just
Okay.
throwing that out there.
Yes, Brian.
I have a quick question. Michelle, with all the new costs,
Yeah.
are we how far into the 610s? How much is 610?
We'll get
So
into it.
funny.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know if we were going to go into
next we
Yeah,
have
that's next
reserve
on the
fund
agenda.
transfer.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I love when that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so reserve.
Good pivot.
So what you have for reserve fund transfer right now is the third one.
Yes.
And it's for $63,180.21. I attached the summary construction schedule on it that just shows the ones that are in this packet, and then the invoices, the school report, and then you have the invoices attached that equal the $63,000. These were Parker Hardware. These were ceiling tiles, Home Depot, the fogger, and the solution. Some other Home Depot supply, micro cleaning kit, dusting brush, I don't know what the heck that is. The plumbing for multiple parts in that wing.
So that was the same proposal or package that we went before the finance committee?
Yes, it's the
Exactly
exact same thing.
right?
And then
Okay.
the Rebuildex, which is the grid installation in the classrooms. And then AVB Press, which This was actually a special ed thing that, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's a supply for Jackie Vader's room, part of that preschool special ed wing. So that's what you have before you. Right now, you all were present at the Finance Committee meeting. We went through this already. The other thing, which is...
Thank you, Mike.
Do I have to introduce myself?
We also have our chair of FinCom's in the back there, Ken.
Yeah, why don't you come up?
View us. If we have a lot of, if the town continues to have a lot of stakeholders that are coming to make sure everything's.
Since we've coordinated this all together, so. Currently, after this last reserve fund, there'll be approximately $90,754 left. The way we've arranged it so far, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that under the law, basically, you're also considered a department. So on this last transfer, all you would need is the chair of the school committee to sign off on it. We also will be making the Board of Selectmen aware on the 16th that they will probably not see the last reserve fund, and that basically, just for transparency purposes, and it will be presented to FinCom on the 22nd and voted at that time.
Like you're talking about the number 4.
Number 4. Number 3 will be reviewed by BOS on Tuesday, and then you will be looking at it
On the
on
22nd.
And at that time, hopefully, we'll have.
Yeah,
the fourth
unfortunately,
one.
I'm not going to be at that meeting on the 22nd.
Neither will I.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
So I guess I'll be meeting with you a lot next week or so. And the reason why we're looking to do it this way is if we, assuming it gets approved, the last one for whatever the amount is, then we would it would be transferred as to the school, and we could encumber the funds to do it. The alternative is the assumption that that money will then go back into the pool. It will go into free cash, and then we would have to reappropriate the funds all over again. So you understand the time frame. Normally I get it done in August. Chances are I won't do free cash until late September. So it may not be something we could do in October, really. And I'm being honest, only because of time constraints. Cheryl's out for 2 weeks. I'm taking my first time off since last August. Yeah, my daughter moved to Brussels for 3 years, so that was the last time I've seen her. I have 3, so I decided that, take. Let me tell you, there's temptation. Don't tempt me. Yeah, so this is the time constraint that way. But I think if we were to approve it, that's what we would do. Whatever the funds are, we would transfer it over, and those funds would be available to be used by the school. Now, what that amount is, again, would be up to the FinCom.
Yeah, so the only thing I would add to what Mike's saying, which is absolutely right, the legal process is, as he said, is that a department sends a reserve fund transfer to the Finance Committee. In this case, because of the extraordinary circumstances, we've asked you as a committee to review that with your business manager before submitting it, and then also to have it reviewed by the Board of Selectmen. I mean, at this point in the process, all the pieces are there, the exact amounts are, still being determined and so forth, but it's not like something surprising is all of a sudden going to come on to that. So you as a committee should be very familiar with this, and obviously you reside a great deal of trust in your business manager.
Right, and we've checked with DOR, so basically, and that's how we determined whether it could be needed a full school committee or a department head. Yeah. And as far as they're concerned, department head approval would be sufficient to move it forward.
The Finance Committee is also committed to the Board of Selectmen to have transparency on this. Even though the rule of having the Board of Selectmen review it was instituted so the department's under their jurisdiction and authority would, that they would see these reserve funds transfers as part of that, and obviously the school committee is not under that authority, but again, because of the extraordinary amount of money that we're looking at here, the finance committee felt very strongly that they wanted to commit to that level of transparency. So even though we won't have them vote and approve on it, then the Board of Selectmen is still going to be made aware of what this is, and I think we feel comfortable about that process. So again, to make it clear, we're not shortcutting the process. The process is signature on the form goes straight to the finance committee, obviously, through the finance director for the town. So we're not shortcutting the process. We had layered on a lot of other things that were in the expediency and in understanding that we are going forward with complete transparency both across the school committee and the Board of Selectmen, then we feel comfortable doing it this way.
So I just want to appreciate the due diligence and the, everyone's really making sure that we're hitting the marks. There's been a lot of communication in the high scenes and thought partnership and clarifying and making sure that everyone's hitting what they need to hit. And we really appreciate that. And it sounds like at this point, the one thing that we've identified and we're actually ahead of time considering is that number 4.
Right.
And figuring out how we're going to take care of that.
Yeah, and so I would just say, you know, you're going to be here on the 22nd?
Yes, I will
be. So Jill Prendergast is going to be chairing it, and so we just need to make sure that whatever questions there might be on the elements of number 4 are, you know, fully communicated to Mike so that he can speak.
And I can also leave my phone. I know I've said this before, but
Yeah,
I can
I'm not
leave my
calling you on
number.
vacation.
I know you
so.
keep saying that, but
Well, actually, I'm not calling you on vacation because I won't be there either. So.
But I am reachable. If it's a question that needs to be answered before a vote can be taken on it, I'm 100% available.
So, you know, at this point, all the things are on the list, so this is not, you know, in the beginning of the process.
And we did do an initial conversation about it
Right.
while we were at FinCom the other day, so and I'm trying to get that information as soon as possible to be sent out, so if there are preliminary questions, I'll be able to answer them prior to the meeting.
So the final date by which Beth Lynn has to sign off on the 4th quote is the 22nd? Or
That's when it's being presented to FinCom.
Yeah,
right,
so
the
probably-
last date too, or does she have to do it a couple of days ahead of time?
So
Well-
I'm hoping to have it done
You
by,
know the deadline.
right, so I'm hoping to have it, I'm technically leaving on the 19th.
So it needs to be done by the 19th.
So I'm going to try and have it done for the 18th.
We'll be meeting before then, just to go
And
over
we're
some
meeting
stuff.
on Tuesday,
Right.
so,
So we'll-
you know, if I can, the sooner I can have it, the better.
But the 18th is like.
But the 18th is my deadline date.
Works.
Good to know, thank you.
I am back late on the 18th, so I'll be able to take care of it on the 19th.
Yeah, that's
And then
fine.
there-
And I'm available, like email
Yeah.
or phone.
And then there also needs to be probably school committee representation, so.
At all those meetings.
So.
I'm happy to attend as well, too.
Perfect. And we
Great.
can meet prior, so that you guys are both all set for it. Okay.
It'd be my, you know, as I had expressed at earlier meetings, it would be my recommendation based on the sense of the finance committee as a whole that we push forward and get all these things done now rather than having them go forward into the next fiscal year. So.
Yep.
There was concern about the services that haven't been in that piece
The what?
for August and how that is that all
Oh,
fine?
actually, so
'Cause I
I
know
was
that got
talking
brought up in
to
the last
Mike
meeting.
in the labor, and I misspoke on that labor
Yes.
piece. That 5,500 was not for work that was happening after July 1st. It was I was waiting for the DPW to give me the overtime from the people at the town. and it's for
Right.
the month of June.
Okay.
And I didn't remember that until I talked to Marie at the DPW. Because
Yeah.
when we were talking about it that day, I'm like, I swear to God, I knew that this was here, but, you know, I've too many things on my mind. But, so that work, that labor
I
is.
can't imagine what.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
It's
'cause I know that was,
kids.
one of the
It's actually kids. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, so that labor would be allowable under there. And Marie is getting me that information. I spoke with her today, actually, and she was compiling that. So that actually can be, it is work prior to July 1st that was done, yeah.
And the electrical,
Yeah, I'm hoping tomorrow we get the third
We're comfortable.
bid on that, and we're comfortable. Yeah, I already had a PO, I encumbered, and I've already upped it to this amount, just to protect us. I also upped the fire one, I doubled my double on the fire one. So to answer Brian's question, I think currently we are at 609, $594.
That's if you, for the fourth one? That's for the, including
The fourth one.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm still waiting to hear back on that teaching strategies PO.
Curriculum.
Yes, and
I don't know. If you
yeah, I'll have to follow up with her
Okay.
on it.
Yeah, your name thrown in.
We shouldn't have a.
I didn't think so, but I didn't want to close it before we had the conversation. So that may be $3,000. So we're at 507 or 607. I wish 507, but 607.
Can I? We'll talk later.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
She and I will be in contact before the 19th to go over lines as Ken will be there.
We talk daily,
Yes.
like on a regular basis. Dave.
Sometimes hourly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you have to put a lot of thanks to two people really in this whole process. One is Michelle, all the time she's put in, and Ken for his energy and understanding and making this whole thing work, seriously.
You too, Mike.
No,
Seriously.
no.
I'm
And
expecting
my job.
a pay raise on
And,
that.
I mean, like, it literally is a group effort. Like, I can tell you my office has been amazing. You guys thank me a lot. I try and thank them a lot because I would never have the time to do any of this stuff if they hadn't helped me every single step of the way. So I just think in the custodians and in Kyle and Tim before he left, like, we've had a lot of people that have put some really awesome effort into the, and I think, you know.
I mean, she's no longer surprised when she gets emails from me on Saturdays and Sundays anymore.
No, I responded with mine on Sunday, see?
Well, we've been getting them from Michelle on Sunday.
So I guess I'd be remiss in not saying that it, you know, that I share in Mike's sense of celebration of a process well done, but let's remember that this is largely also a process that represents a failure in many things that should have happened.
Yep.
And the $610,000 on some level represents $610,000, a portion of which you know, rightly should have gone into the Green Meadow, certainly for repairs and so forth, but that those repairs, because of the nature and the emergency nature and so forth, were more expensive, and it represents an expenditure by the taxpayers of Maynard in this time when we're having to also build a you know, a fire station and the Green Meadow School roof and other capital projects. And so I just, in the spirit of, you know, there's 90% of me that's celebrating the process, but there's a bit of me that just wants to make sure that we're all reminded the fact that that we need to move forward expeditiously on.
Yeah, and it also speaks to the fact that we really need to get the capital planning committee back up and going and really be conscientious about putting everything on the list. And when money is allocated to go to things like the Green Meadow roof, a few years ago, that all the money does actually go and it doesn't get redirected to other places. So there's a lot to learn by all of us.
There's a lot of things that go into this, which is the need for commercial development in the town, the need for us to make sure our state representatives and senator are aware of the impact of many of the laws on small cities, which is what Maynard is a small city. We aren't classified as a city according to the law, but when you take a look at our infrastructure, and this includes the water and the sewer and the school system and our road system and so on and so forth, a lot of that is falling on the taxpayers. And what's invisible to the system is the stuff that's being taken out, before the money we even see, charter schools being one substantial portion of that, but there are many other things, including, whether we're getting the Chapter 90 money that we need and things like that. So there are some systemic problems that we need to take a look at, and we don't have years to address these problems. So I won't get much more on the soapbox than that.
And also what it's also taught us is on our side is, as a result of what's happened, is now better communication on the town side within the town in terms of certain things, because certain things have come up, and I think we've learned we have to communicate better, so it's taught us a lesson also.
Yeah, the budget subcommittee, no doubt, was a big part of the success in this past year, and going into this next year, we have momentum on many things, which will allow us to engage our representatives, perhaps in the process, in a little bit more detail. So, lots of good things.
Lydia and I are going to be on the budget subcommittee.
And I'm not. No, I'm not. It's going to be Jill and Bob this year. I go to enough meetings. That's right, Lindy. Getting rid of one.
Is there any other questions, or? All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. So with that in mind, we have this in front of us. So I'm, as department head, going to sign.
Please.
Okay. Which is just a funny term, but that's what it says here. So we'll go with that. Okay. So then I don't know.
Goes to Mike, actually, who just walked out.
Here, let me grab it. I'll give it to Mike. And are you all done with it?
Yep, I have my own copy.
Yeah.
That's the original. Huh?
All right.
Thank you very much.
He sends it to me once Greg signs it, and he does the transfer. He sends me all the info.
All right. So we're going to move on then to the next item, which is both the interim superintendent and the superintendent search update. So we at our special meeting last week had divvied up work to look into search. So first we had two representatives that were going to start from school committee, which were Mary and Mara, that were going to start moving forward with the interim search. And then we'll also discuss, as this part of this item, the potential organizations that we could use for a superintendent search and what we've got so far from that, and also potential recommendations for funding, if that makes sense tonight, to be able to talk about that. So I'm going to start with interim.
Yep. So the position was posted last Wednesday for the interim superintendent, thanks to Jennifer. And we've had a number of people apply. The deadline for applications is tomorrow, the 12th. We have a 7-member committee. Mara and myself, a school committee, Jennifer Gaudette, Carol Gahan, Mike Waldron, Dave Gavin, who am I forgetting? Thank you, Michelle.
Yes.
Michelle. So we're going to have our first meeting on Monday to talk about next steps. As far our hope is to get somebody on board for August 1st, although it's looking very aggressive. But so we're just going to work as fast as we can. But we will have our first meeting on Monday and then go from there and decide which ones are the candidates we want to bring forward for an interview and go from there. So that's
and Mary and I are going to be sending out an email probably tomorrow. Just giving that operation. Like what our plan is to do with all the information that we have. So.
Things for you to be thinking about and that, and come prepared to the meeting for. So.
Yeah. guys all have homework this week.
How did, because you were there this week?
Mm-hmm.
What was the room?
Um,
I know. Was
A
the
lot of
turnout?
questions, and sort of just wondering about process. So I spoke to many people.
She was at the Mass Association for Superintendents.
The school superintendents.
Superintendents Conference.
Summer conference, Executive Institute. And so I spoke to many people that, again, there were a lot of questions about sort of process and things of that nature. Talked also about the permanent superintendent search as well, which I think, right now we have some folks who are sitting or were sitting superintendents. I don't think there's anyone currently sitting, and we have a lot of, as we talked about, building administrators who are looking to sort of make that jump for the interims. I would expect that we would see more assistant superintendents and potentially superintendents applying for the permanent position, which makes a lot of sense, that we can see. So yeah, there's a lot.
That was good. So
conversation.
you had some people approach you and that, so if you reached
Yeah,
out,
and I also went up to some people and said, "Hey, do you want to be my boss?" No, but more starting the conversation and trying to get Maynard's name in a positive way and talking about all of the really amazing opportunities we have and the more.
How receptive was that?
Yeah, no, the more I talked about all of the amazing programming that we have and all of the incredible opportunity which we have continued to discuss. It was uplifting for me to be able to talk about the positive things, but they also were incredibly impressed at some of the things we were able to do. The two principal model was something that was very appealing to folks. They thought that was a really innovative way of trying to maximize resources. The different programming that we have with the Chapter 74 program, the immersion programs, and talked a lot about our improvement efforts. And this work that we have to do in district right now is the work that people want to do. It's what we're talking about. We're talking about equity as a professional organization. We're talking about making sure that all students have opportunities to be successful, and making sure. We had one presenter who was absolutely fabulous, and he gave the definition of excellence that I think we should all use, which is that we're better tomorrow than we were yesterday. We're better next week than we were the week before, and all the way down the line. And that it's not about perfection; it's about that excellence of being better every step of the way. And that's the work that everyone is doing. So we're not alone in that capacity. But we did have some things that we could celebrate that Maynard has done. That was fun to do.
Are we able to post the interim job on their website, or?
I don't know that we posted the interim job on their website. I could look and see. I'm not sure how that works. If they pull from.
Okay.
So I actually got an application from a gentleman in New York. Who, because our job was posted on the New York superintendent's webpage. So sometimes, those organizations just pull from what they see. So I can find out about that.
I was just thinking, even if most people are interested in the permanent, they see an interim out there, that they might keep us on their radar a little bit.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and I know myself, I talked to 3 potential people that were interested in the interim position, and obviously raved about everything, all the great reasons that somebody would want to be an interim and/or superintendent. So, yeah. So that's it as far as the interim update. We'll have more, obviously, in our next meeting. So.
And in terms of that, based on your email that goes out, I'm wondering about, again, if we have a community, maybe it's on Fridays where some of the pressing things, so maybe it's the Green Meadow update, and then also the interim. We could kind of give here's where things are to the community. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So that everyone's aware of the short timeline of things.
And I did have part of the meeting with Stephen today was also talking about school committee communication and how. So I think having a conversation about that protocol. Might be relevant, I think, for the school committee, how we're going to go through that. But basically, it would be through the Maynard Public School, and it would send something out, post in the news feed, but also send something out through social media as well. So a separate conversation that we can talk about, but I think as the conversations about the search go, it might be helpful to.
And anything else about the interim? We also, when we had our training, we mentioned it too, Dorothy was the one that did our training. So I don't know, were you gonna reach out to her about if they had interims? I don't remember.
They do.
They do.
I don't know what the fee schedule is for
Oh,
that.
yeah, do we need to, Michelle, do we need to put this, like, do an RFQ or R?
I think, what do you guys, I don't, because it depends, if it's going to be more than $50,000, then
Is
yes.
50,000?
It's 50,000.
Or the-
$10,000, you need 3 different quotes. Sorry.
So I think it's gonna be definitely more than, or might be around 10,000, some of them, right?
Yeah, but we're getting 3 quotes, so we're covered there. And
If it's more than 10,000 with the 3 quotes, or soliciting 3 quotes, like Josh had said, it's
Right.
basically calling somebody up and
that's-
saying,
And those are the
By
three that
us
we're
doing the 3,
Yeah.
the
Right.
companies were covered.
if it ends up that it's going to be over $50,000, we have to go out.
Okay, all right, and so I know that the one, that I haven't heard back from, because I didn't really reach out to them initially, was HYA. Because I reached out initially to MASSS, and they are, they're like, no, we don't do that, but they provided the recommendations to, a couple other places,
So that was the information that I received from NESDEC as far as the long-term superintendent. We've used them a couple of times before, but I think this could be a conversation for later too, because I'm happy to, once we get all 3, I'm happy to put them on a spreadsheet, because they all kind of quote a little bit differently, as far as what the add-ons are and that kind of thing versus what's included
And I
in
think,
the package.
if we look at that document from Mass about like when you're doing a superintendent search, like the things to consider, so like advertising, all those pieces will.
And Dorothy also said that Mass can come and present at a meeting if we need them to, so they can explain the process to the community.
For the super search?
For the super search.
I'm gonna call it super search for short, if that's okay with everyone. Okay.
Thank you.
That could be, I imagine that would be useful to the community to be able to.
I think there's a lot of variables also, like on travel, like depending on the candidate, travel, and all those things.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest, so, Natasha had found and sent around, she's good at finding useful guiding documents. So she found one looking for a leader.
Yep,
And when you read that, it is eye-opening as far as kind of the considerations for superintendents and what attracts them, and what is unique about Massachusetts and being a superintendent in Massachusetts. And it amazes me that anyone
Would want
wants
to
to
do
do
it?
it.
People still apply.
Period.
I told you, I sat through a thing at MASBO, and it was about going from business manager to superintendent, and all that did for me was when I walked out,
I'm happy with my job.
never in a million years.
So,
She's applying for the interim.
Nope. No.
she's not. She's just saying that. Just right. Anyways.
Oh, yeah, she's not. That was a joke.
Yeah. That was
Nope.
tongue in cheek.
Oh, they're my personal.
Okay, so, and in terms of, so far, I see a quote in here.
Right, yeah.
For 14 something.
Right, and but we
What
do
is
get a
that?
20% discount because we already utilize NESDEC services.
And that gets to be a good kind of change when you're talking about
Yeah.
thousands.
The other night when we made the finance committee aware that we might be going to them for another reserve fund transfer, I used the number of $20,000 just because with all the add-ons and things
Yeah.
like that. I figured that's probably worst case scenario,
Yeah.
but just so that they'd heard it at least once.
So I think, that, is this the company that we used, you said, for the last 2 superintendent
yeah.
searches? Okay.
And we use them, we engage with them now to do our projections.
Projections, yeah.
Yep.
And that's why they give us a discount.
Student.
Enrollment projections, so we can plan funding.
But again, I'm happy to once we have all 3, because we've got 2 out of the 3 now, because Lydia's is available. So once we get the 3rd one, I'm happy to do a spreadsheet of what all the line items are, because they do vary in what's included in that initial number versus the add-ons.
Yeah.
I know, it's just between the 2 that I saw
Yeah.
from us.
Yeah, and so they, on Monday, because I sent them an email over the weekend, Monday they responded, asked what our timeline to get information, and I said within a week. So hopefully a couple more days. I didn't want to like get 3 days, hey, you have it yet? No. So anyway, so as soon as I get it, but I did looking just on their websites are all very interesting. The different offerings, you know, and you know, so yeah, I think it'll have to be a decision of like what's more important to us, and then, you know, is there an opportunity? I know FinCom is very concerned about first looking internally in our budget before presenting any ask. So I think getting feedback from Michelle at some point when it's decided on
I
what
sent
areas.
something to you today.
Just did send a consideration of the moving parts and what happens if we finish, Bob finishes out, and the cost of that finish out, and then potential salaries, projecting what they might be for the interim, and then for the new hire.
Right, so
That's looking at salary though as the only place to, right?
we don't have any money anywhere else, to be complete. I mean, we're technically already short for next year because we've had some special ed costs, which we had the 50,000, and we have no expense lines that we could pull from.
I was wondering, because it was asked of Maine, I don't know, but I know that like professional development, their budget, because like with Dr. Girardi not being, is there anything that was budgeted for?
I think it's very minuscule.
You know, I don't know. I'm just wondering those things.
Actually, hold on, because I have my computer.
Like whatever we had budgeted besides just his salary, that maybe we can also, I don't know, a couple of $2,000 here might be something. Anyway, nothing that you need to decide right now, but
I can actually look for you right now, so
Okay.
it will be, we can answer that question.
While you're looking,
Yep.
did you send us stuff from Mask as well?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't look at it. Do you want to,
No, it's okay.
in a minute? I saw it and I did not get to
and I
it.
did create a folder, I don't know if I myself, but just today, a shared, just so everyone can kind of dump, and when I get it, all consolidated in one place.
I made
It was all this afternoon, so.
Yeah, I was technically working all day today.
So, I know those exact numbers at this moment, but
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, just basically how that might factor in.
where resources.
I just want to give you an idea, it's $3,000.
Okay.
So,
That's something.
Yeah.
I think it'll show our due diligence that we're, you know.
oh,
If we're fortunate to get
but some of that is actually being used, sorry, she just reminded me.
and if we're fortunate to get a permanent superintendent in January, then we might
Right, want to use that.
want them to use that,
Right.
some of that money too.
Well, it depends on what's written in their contract.
Right.
But it's good to really keep an eye out of
One of the things, just in terms if we're looking at a January start, we would be wanting this individual to attend. I would recommend that this individual attend the MASS Superintendent Induction Program, which is, I think it was about $4,500 a year the last time I looked.
There is one of the, I don't remember which place they have, like, maybe it's the one, HYA, they have an onboarding, like a transition, which is, again, another a la carte thing, possibly, I don't know, I didn't know the price that's associated, but it was something that,
Yeah, so this is very specific to superintendent job functions and so on within Massachusetts. They have a mentor that is assigned to them. They also have meetings, and it's all of the things that I think you would want your superintendent to sort of have. So particularly if we get someone who is new, I would strongly recommend that.
new to Massachusetts, you mean, or new to?
New to the superintendency.
So say
Oh,
there's an
new.
assistant that got promoted.
Okay, got it.
As part of our.
Oh, it depends on the candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Who put this, I thought this was a good idea to put this next to me.
Blame Lydia.
This is how Lydia keeps us
Actually,
going.
blame Brian, because he brought up.
Food for thought.
We will not be making any decisions now, no, for sure.
Sorry, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I don't think there's anything else for that right now. We have our next meeting is August 1st, so,
Much more information.
yeah, but at the interim, there'll be information being, obviously,
You'll be introducing the interim.
well, yes, on August 1st, we'll be
She's
introducing.
really nice.
But weekly, we'll be able to hopefully share out to the community, and so people will be updated in that way. And obviously, we'll continue on. FYI. Okay, so next on the agenda is onboarding of interim principal for Green Meadow. Yet another activity happening in the district. For this one, I think that we just wanted to do our due diligence to consider helping educate the community and for everyone to know the timeline for that, and to consider when we'd be able to communicate with the community around that piece as well, and the plan for them being able to obviously meet with the staff and potentially and then the community. And I think that covers.
Yeah, I think because
Especially had brought this
I
on
know
board.
that Dr. Jordy had mentioned August 15th is when Tim would be available to meet with staff and community, but the question was more about, and I got some questions about school leadership, other schools wanting to maybe beforehand have the opportunity to meet their peer, and also just the school committee maybe having an opportunity to meet before Broad. So I don't know if I don't know what his schedule and when Donna, because I think they were going to connect.
So Dr. Jardy had connected Principal McGillicuddy with Principal Dankner, and I'm not sure if that process has unfolded. I am meeting with him tomorrow to discuss his coming on board and timelines, to make sure that I'm able to support him as he comes on and takes on these roles with some of the pieces that we need to do. So I'll have more information available after that meeting tomorrow, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so you'll be able to just...
I'll send out information. Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
And just in terms of other building leadership, people are in and out throughout the summer. We do have a summer leadership retreat. It's not really a retreat. We go to a conference room. But we do have we have food. It's great. So we do have a leadership retreat to make sure that we are as a team on a page, and that is those are dates that have been scheduled. That happens annually.
So maybe he'll have the opportunity to...
Oh, he will absolutely be there at that point.
When is that scheduled for?
It's usually in the middle of August. So obviously, again, once we know when he is formally starting, that information can go out and folks can go introduce themselves, as one would hope colleagues would. And then in terms of the formal team process, because of schedules, we usually reserve those dates pretty early on.
Okay.
So we were actually just talking about that this week to make sure that we had that on the calendar and everyone knew to be available for that.
If we can have him come to our meeting, but if he's around on August 22nd when we have our meeting, or if there's like a meet and greet that we can go to him, when you
Well, that's
have
what I was
your
thinking,
leadership, I would love to meet him.
Yeah, beforehand,
So I
I
think
want to
those
put him out.
Yeah, those are, I think, are all of the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow. What are those processes that he has found to be successful when he's come into new buildings, and what are our expectations? So we'll have that piece, and certainly I can ask him to come on August 1st, simply as an introduction to the school. We usually do that at the beginning, anyhow. So.
Great, appreciate that. Great, so next, we are going to open up to citizens' comments, and I do want to just remind folks, we actually in the training just had a kind of reminder of a few things. One, generally, we'll do citizens' comments more at the beginning, and at the end of the meeting is kind of bookends to the meeting, so we're going to move to that process. And then the other thing was just that we do ask that people do their best to limit their comments to about 3 minutes, which can be difficult at times, but that's what we ask. And if someone is saying something that you generally agree with, you can, rather than reiterate the point, just let's say we agree, and we kind of move on from there with whatever else you may want to bring up. Those are general guidelines. Obviously, we want to respect what people feel like they need to say, but I just want to put that forth as our what we have in our policies. So you can just come up to the microphone, because we're going to be...
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Larry Schultz, educator, more or less, kind of sort of retired.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Lawrence Schultz.
Lawrence Schultz, great.
Yes, I remember you from the Fowler School, which is where I went tonight. It was dark and lonely, so I found out you were here. Anyway, I've been involved with the Earth Day celebrations and so forth. And I know that in 7 weeks or so, the school's going to start up and things are going to get even crazier than they are now. So I wanted you to basically to share some thoughts about what we're thinking about doing involving the schools. Rochelle Lerner with the Green Committee is part of our committee, and she's going gangbusters. The Earth Day is going to be May 3rd next year. It's going to start Maynard's sesquicentennial, the 150th anniversary of its birth. So we're starting the year-long celebration. What we're thinking about doing was having students at all three schools approach the art teachers about having them do pictures about the Earth and maybe climate change, possibly, arguably, and also have them posted around the town. So not only are the students involved, but by default the parents as well, and also the different businesses in town to sort of promote the sense of Earth Day in the community. In addition to that, now that would be more like a art exposition. Also, and additionally, I think with the Fowler School and the high school, and maybe even an adult poetry competition, and have the winner from each of those three categories recite or have recited the poem regarding, Earth Day type stuff, like Walt. If we have a young Walt Whitman out there, then so much the better. So I just wanted to let you know that as a courtesy and also heads up, because I know things are going to get pretty intense and very shortly. So that's the extent of it. Any questions?
I guess that I do remember you coming to us last year. First off, it's great that you have this group of people that are working together to bring another cool thing into Maynard.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see if you can remind us from last year, what was the process that you found you needed, that we need to be aware of as far as timeline? You're putting it on our minds now. And what else would you need moving forward?
Well, I wanted basically to start approaching. We're going to have we've had like Violet Cobb, Emma Rubio, or students who have now graduated, who are involved with being student liaisons to the different schools. We also have Ginny Mannion, who's a highly energetic young woman, and her buddy Carolyn Jordan, who are sort of going to be liaisons. But I wanted to approach the different principals of the different schools, sort of explain our concept. We had a meeting last month. We're going to have another meeting in about a week or so, and just wanted to make sure that the idea is a consensus of the group before I approach them. Okay, and then talk with the principals and the art teachers of the different schools, and the writing and literature teachers of the different schools. See, I don't want to, because of the demands of the curricula, I don't want to like throw this at them, and have them try to do some sort of a accommodation where, maybe this can be sort of more easily slipped into what they're doing if they're given as early as possible heads up.
This is something that, just sorry to interrupt, but this is something that we could do very simply in terms of interdisciplinary collaboration around science standards, around engineering standards, around art standards.
Exactly. It can't, it's to be incorporated with, to the extent practicable, but not in, contrast to, right?
So
sort of
please
make
let me
it
know
part
if
of the
that process.
part of the thing. And incorporating, the idea would be ultimately to have, instead of having these abstract curricular ideas about writing and art, have it more community directed, so it's more, has a stronger impact to them, sort of a reinforcement, not only to them, their parents, but also the community. All right? Any other questions?
I did notice that I'm on the Maynard Business Alliance, and the 2nd of May next year, we always have the Spring Art Walk on the first Saturday in May, which is the 2nd of May. So you need to go before the Maynard Business Alliance, because we can tie the student artwork in with that also, with the businesses. It'd be a nice collaboration.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes.
So unless there are other considerations that would require us to consider having come from more of a, it's on the agenda, it sounds like the next step, and given you did this last year, I don't have any, but just to see if anyone else does, that we consider putting them in. Then the next step, I think, would be to connect with Jennifer. And then figure out when and how the best way to have those conversations and planning for engagement.
Okay, yeah, we're, I don't know if you don't necessarily need my contact information at this point, but we'll sort of, get into the radar of what's happening in Maynard so we can communicate. And, having the Business Alliance on May 2nd, the Earth Day on May 3rd, and then the whole 150-year thing, I think is timely and cool. Okay, anything else? Any other questions?
One of the reasons we're going to start putting public comment at the beginning, because if you were wanting to come and say that quickly, and then you could bow out if you're kind of done. So that.
Well, I came late, so what can I say?
Yeah, well, we're glad.
And I wasn't paying attention to the locus of the meeting. All right, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So we do have, as you'll see on the agenda, one other public comment period as well. So I don't know if anyone has anything else they wanted to say now. Yeah.
Hi, it was just when you guys were talking about the Green Meadow update, it sounded like there was still a chance that either kindergarten or maybe even all of Green Meadow was going to have a delayed start. So just as a parent, I reached out to some of my friends who I know have kids going into kindergarten, and they all agreed that they would rather have notification early saying that there's a chance that kindergarten might start late now, and give them a timeline of when you'll give them an update and have a final decision. So again, this just all goes back to the transparency and communication. So whoever, one of you, they would appreciate it if there was some sort of early notice that there's a chance that might happen.
Like just update of.
Yeah, just an update, because obviously there are not a lot of kindergarten parents here, so the word's not going to get out to them. But
what I would suggest is that we get our update that we're sending out on the process of the project.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to send that in isolation because then it would appear as though things are not moving along the way that they are.
Yeah.
So we had looked at getting some the information back, and so next week we can send the update on the project and then also include that information as well.
yeah. Thank you.
So the question is, where they're incoming kindergartners, are they in the network yet?
They should be.
Oh, they are.
They are, okay. Yeah, that was going to be my other.
They had to register already.
Yeah.
They've already had to register.
So we
And
got their email addresses and that. So.
Super duper. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, sorry. And what about preschool? Them too?
Preschool too? Are they in the?
If they are currently enrolled preschool students, they will be in there as well. But
They will
again,
be.
when we send this information out, we can send it on our social media sites as well. I noticed that other groups have been posting our posts on their sites to try and spread the word in that capacity. So,
So it'll go to all Green Meadow
Okay, folks.
and that's part of why we use the multiple platforms to try and get a broader
broad
reach.
bases. Perfect.
What a great idea. It's nice that we actually have those. That's good. Great. Thank you. All right. So then I'm going to move into the next agenda item, which is ClearGov membership considerations. So just as background on this, ClearGov, we'd had like a kind of trial through a grant
for the town, yeah, it was the town, yeah, there was a grant
that's
through the.
ending it was for a year, and so it costs money to continue to use ClearGov, which is a site that takes things that are on the DESI site, but allows it to look a lot prettier and be a lot more user-friendly. If that's a good basic summary.
That is really great summary, actually. Yeah.
All right. So there had been some. Natasha had wanted to consider that further, recognizing what they had offered us, and they did come back to us with a lower price because they're actually in town. Like
They're in town, and actually our representative has kids who go to Green Meadow. Actually, the lady that is our contact. Yes, yeah. Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, I'm like, oh, you knew her name? Like,
I
I
also
didn't know
met
that.
with our sales team when they
Oh.
were down at the conference, so
Oh,
we
funny.
chatted.
You chatted.
Yeah.
We chatted about Maynard.
Did you tell him, like, we actually can get you anyone, can you just give us?
I said we go out to the clock tower for a beverage and maybe get a better place.
So what had happened is when I had called them to say that we weren't going to renew our subscription because of cost, she actually came back with a really reduced price. And I knew that it was something that you were fairly interested in. So I forwarded it to the school committee to say, you know, is this something you want me to find the funds to continue? In doing that, in talking about that, I don't know who I spoke with. It might have been Mauro. I can't remember. But there are funds that school committee has within our budget at your privy that if you wanted to use your budget line for us to purchase the service, that I think your budget would allow for that amount.
just to put
Not
my-
much more, just to warn you. So
Yeah.
if there are other things that you're planning on,
Conferences and things
like
that
the
we want to go
conferences,
to,
right,
they'd be on
right. That's all within your budget as well. Also, the taping is coming out of your budget as well.
Right.
So,
So just to put some context to this, so last year we didn't have to pay anything.
correct.
And just so the community's understanding
Yep.
what we're talking about. And going forward, if we want to continue it, this is where this $1,600
Correct.
expense would be going forward, and it'd be ClearGov, so it would be continuing. And the content, I just want to clarify, the content would still be somewhat similar?
So just to give you a thing, so ClearGov actually offers a lot of different
Products.
aspects of this. Even in the back end for the district, we don't actually use that piece of it. What I think the piece that you all see and find value in is that transparency piece, that easy to click, user friendly amounts, totals,
Comparisons.
So all of that would still be active. The back end, and honestly, the piece we don't use is what we wouldn't have access to.
I think the only reason why I thought this was an interesting tool was because I know as a district we don't have our budget very readily accessible to folks on like our website.
It is on our website.
Not like our home, it's like buried under like the documents, right? So a lot of districts have it, you know, on their homepage or something, and it's very transparent in how you read all the different pieces. So ClearGov presents it sometimes in a more user-friendly way that people don't have to.
ClearGov isn't necessarily presenting our budget; they're presenting our full
Costs.
expenditures.
Right,
Now,
costs.
that's when you talk about our budget, we're talking about the general fund. It's only one piece of what we spend money out of.
Right.
So ClearGov is taking all pieces. So it's indirect costs from the town, it's our circuit breaker, it's our school
Right.
choice, it's all of our revolving funds, it's all expenses that we pay on students. When you're talking budget, it's where we talk general fund budget is what's available on our site. So it's like, you know,
More robust.
so ClearGov takes a lot more information, I would say, that we normally wouldn't be putting on our page. So that's the
Yeah, that's
value
the value
in
of
that.
expenses.
Yeah.
We can move the budget, we could create an under and about us or under the HR page somewhere, a budget page.
Yeah,
That would
it's
be
usually right.
preferable.
There's usually a finance. In most districts, there's a finance tab, and then
So
you
we can
click it
just
on that, or it's a school
send-
committee tab, and it's within there.
So right now, where does this stand? Is it on?
I'm waiting
or-
for you guys to
Okay.
tell me.
Okay.
But I just to warn you, it's a very tight budget, and you do use your budget for other things. And I would say this would be a decision of school committee to expend it out of your budget, and not necessarily. I wouldn't have the ability to find the funds somewhere else. But I thought for such a reduced price that it should be something I think it was like over $5,000. So I mean, it's like significantly reduced. Yeah, I think it was 9,000, at first, and then 5,000 something, I can't remember the exact numbers, and then the 1,600, so.
I know as far as being on the budget subcommittee, it was helpful. Yeah, we would look at it quite regularly, so. I don't know, is anybody else?
I mean, I would be in favor of exploring the option to keep it, just because of the
1 year
Yeah,
trial
yeah, and
and see
see
how much
how-
we actually utilize it.
right. I mean, just because of again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, again, you don't have to be a finance person to go in and read it. It's just presented in a way that any parent, anyone who's looking at Maynard can really go in and digest it very easily. I think that's what it's intended to do. And
The other thing I can ask them too, Colleen just brought up something really, we can ask them how many hits we get if they have a way of tracking that.
Thank you. Pick up those metrics.
Yeah, to
analytics
see,
for, like, yeah.
you know, how useful, like, I don't know how many time, I never used it, but of course I have all the information, like, but you know what I'm saying, like how many,
Would we be able to, like, I know some schools put like a link on their school website.
Yep.
So, I mean, that would be, if we decide to do it this year, we can measure that this year and look at the data of how often it's utilized.
sure.
You can either do a link or you can embed it as part of your website, depending on how you want it to function.
Okay.
I would suggest if we want to be more active on our, because it is only one component of our budget, if we want to be, have our information more front and center, that we do it as a link, either on the homepage or somewhere like that.
So I guess it sounds like there's this isn't, they're like, this offer ends by,
I don't think so. I mean, I think she's being,
really
they're a
wants
local company, she really wants us to use it, and,
so could we could come back on August 1st and
Sure.
consider this.
sure.
One, I would like to just see, like, I have no sense, not looking at line by line at this moment, what is our budget? I know that all of us are planning to go to the mask conference.
You do not have a huge budget.
Yeah, so I think we
And
should
I
consider
can,
that
I
and
can
look at
send
that.
you,
So we can't do the conference and this.
well, I don't know how much your conference costs, so, but what I'll do is I'll send you all a copy of your budget and the lines that are in it, and then you can make the decision based
Okay,
on
our
seeing.
conference,
And you don't have to go for the whole time.
It's
So
not
you
that
only
much.
have to pay for certain
If
days.
we're going, we should go.
All right,
It's
so
90
I
bucks.
think, yeah,
I went-
I think we'll just get the information and then.
Yep.
so we'll send you what we're doing, I know what I've usually done, and
Mhm.
then look at any other, if there's any
I
other.
don't know if they change it.
I can
notable
also
projections for the
see what
next
else
year.
you used your funds on last year.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yep.
And if we can project and get a sense of that,
Mhm.
given how tight everything is, then
Yep.
that would allow us to have, and if we do have. if
I
there are
had
any
my
metrics
computer
to
still
clear
up, but I prematurely closed it. I can tell you right now, but, so it's something very easy. I'll send it to you all tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, and then we'll decide on August 1st.
That's even better, because then we wouldn't have to
Right.
stay.
No,
It's in
this
Marlboro
is-
this year.
no,
It's only
this
Cape
is-
last year.
No, this is different.
But there's one this weekend.
This is
Oh,
different.
that's the one from this weekend.
Oh,
All right,
that's the
okay.
summer.
It's more, I'm confusing us. I thought I put the right one in my bag, maybe I did, but. Anyway, so we will figure that out.
Yeah.
For our next meeting, and including ClearGov, metrics, perhaps they can give us for even this year.
I don't know.
She just knew her name.
I know, I just
Know everything about.
I can email her. I've talked to her many times, so I can email her and,
I mean, if maybe she understands it's part of our decision making.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
I'm
Yeah.
sure they'd be happy to.
I
provide
think
that.
so too.
since
She
you guys
was,
are cozied up, you know.
She wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
It was the director of marketing and someone else, but we did chat.
Reduced rate is $395. End of year reduced rate, regular is $495. So that's what I'm saying.
for all 5 of you.
On or before July 15th, you'd have to sign up.
July. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know anything about that.
Right. We'll take a look at it tomorrow.
It is on the paper.
That we remember.
It's always on the paper.
Can you do 2 jobs right now?
I am.
Oh, but maybe because I wasn't a member before,
That would be
so
why.
I didn't get, I don't know.
All
I
right,
didn't
so
get
we will get into that, but we'll do that offline. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so that's the ClearGov discussion. The next thing we wanted to talk about, unless someone else really needs to say something about ClearGov, or we're getting late. We good?
And I actually
Carry on.
wanted to see see if you wanted to maybe table the next item for the next meeting. I'm not. Yeah, I think it's late and nothing that's
You
really
still
time
have
sensitive.
executive session as well.
Right, exactly. And I know there was some discussion of maybe contributing takeaways. So I wanted to just, maybe I should make a motion that we.
Yeah, maybe we can just explain to the community what this is we've had now 2 trainings, 3 members. Lydia and Mauro and Natasha went to charting course, which is the training that all new folks go to, the orientation, thank you. And then we just had training for
one workshop of the several workshops.
Of workshops that they have that they offer through MASC. We just had done. We did the first one was.
The first one was evaluation.
Evaluation for the superintendent, and then the second one was roles and responsibilities, which had a lot of overlap with charting the course, but it was great for all of us to be together to talk about that. But I think given the time, we felt it would be a great thing to report on what we saw for the year ahead, speaking in the context of change and how we're going to operate together.
Yeah, there was a lot of good tools about protocols and things that we can, monitoring budgets, a whole bunch of array of things, but it's really deep and it's also a long slide deck. So
then Natasha tried to
consolidate like a whole bunch, and it still was long. So I just thought that it would be something that a smaller meeting agenda would be helpful, but I want the community really to see what we're learning and what we're trying to envision as we're improving as a district and a school committee going forward. So okay, so
we have the other one August 5th, right? And that one's going to be goals and strategic planning.
Strategic planning.
So should we make a motion to table or to not?
I think that we did just discuss it, and I think that
we'll just add it to the agenda next time again.
Yeah, I think that's all we need to do.
Okay.
And also just to mention, I was going to mention it in my member comments, but I'll just mention it now because we're talking about trainings. Prior to our goals and priorities, we're going to want to reach out to do some prep work and include considerations from the district in relation to that. It's what's been happening already, and pull out data so that that will inform us as we're setting and looking at goals and priorities for that August 5th meeting. So I'm just going to be pulling out the notes from that piece.
So Emily, I don't need the slide deck tonight, but I thank you so much for. She was like, "I'm ready to launch it for me."
Great. So so that's it for that one for tonight, and then we're back to citizens' comments. So I don't know if anything came up that you'd like to say before we're done. All right. Then I'm going to move into members' comments. I don't know which way you want to start. Do you mind if we go on the line?
Yeah. It's just one question or comment. It was brought to my attention that maybe we're due to renew our membership for Alice. I guess we're supposed to be members of the Alice program, or that in order to take advantage of different opportunities. Jerry Colbert had told me that it's actually membership, so I don't know.
We chose not to renew that membership. That was, it's not meaning we're not an Alice district. That membership was just access to some documents and information, but because we're trainers for the Alice, we went through the training, we actually have, each one of us has access to that. I'm surprised Jerry, because we had the conversation with Jerry there when the safety committee.
This was a couple of weeks ago, so maybe you've had the conversation.
Oh, okay. So then, yeah. So it's.
Wanted to make sure that we were able to take advantage of everything that Alice has to offer.
Yep.
So, good.
That was just a subscription to their documents, basically, and I think we've pulled them off.
Thank you.
I just want to say that I continue to receive letters from various band members and parents. And I guess my question is, at this point, I'm not entirely sure what it is that they're asking of us, because I thought that we had done as much as we were able to do at this point. So I don't know what it is that we're supposed to be considering.
Is it clarification on what is happening next year?
No,
I feel like that's received. Some things.
That's not what I've received. What I've received is, please reinstate band, please fulfill the program the way it used to be, and so I just didn't know if there was anything that I was not aware of that we were supposed to be doing or considering at this point. I know that we all want to bring it back and reinstate it to, the size that it was and offer everything that was offered before, but I wasn't sure if there was still something on the table that we were supposed to be discussing.
Is the .2 person been hired already?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
So they were supposed to be
working with Dr.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mike Bath, right?
Mhm.
We're all going to be working, and that's what Mike had said, that in August they'd be able, once they had that person in place, the three of them, Kevin, .2,
Yep.
and Mike would see how
I know
it's going to
Mike
go.
was with him yesterday.
Was he?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm meeting
And
with
here
Mr.
is
Barth
it-
tomorrow.
There's going to be an updated schedule, I think, that's going to be sent out to.
So I'm meeting, the last communication I have from Mr. Barth related to this issue is that those processes were underway. I'm meeting with him tomorrow as part of our summer meetings to make sure that we're on point with the projects we need to have. So we'll be talking about this piece, but my understanding is that communication will be going out to families in August because of the timing of getting two teachers together and things of that nature. So my understanding is that they are on deadline to be able to communicate in August the changes in scheduling.
And is that going to include the strings program and when that's going to be held, before or after school, or?
The strings program my understanding was that it would be after school. I don't believe is before school, but I can find out about that.
No, will
yeah.
that communication include that information?
It should.
Okay.
It would be my expectation. I will confirm that with him tomorrow.
Do you know when in August that can go out? Because I know people were asking about scheduling, for their own personal, after school, or do they need to make accommodations for their own family?
Sure. I don't know because my understanding is that they wanted to take the month of July to make the changes that they needed to make. So it might be my expectation it would be early in August, but I can't land on
The only
it.
reason why I ask is I know
Yeah.
somebody else was expected to send out a communication, so it was just I feel like we're kicking it down further and further.
And so at the last school committee meeting, I had reached out to Mr. Barth because this wasn't something that I had been involved with.
Right, that's what I mean. It was
His
something that was
communication
prior to you.
to me was that, as you discussed, that the information would go out in August. So we are on point to do that. Obviously, we want to get that done sooner than later, but we also don't want to communicate when we don't have information because then that causes confusion.
Yeah. So I want that. Great. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, but I can think something.
We'll let go of that for today. All right. So I just wanted to tell everyone, and so I will make sure you know about. So I was going to make sure that the community knew about
Be
this.
somewhere? I have no idea.
You will be. You will want to be. You don't have to be, but it's in November. So,
July or something.
well, but the registration, early registration, in order to say, is July 15th.
Next week.
So,
No.
but it's non-refundable. So we want to make sure that you can be there. So I'll make sure you have
Dates again?
the dates are
I think that's on.
November 6th through 9th
Where is it again?
It's
in
in
Hyannis.
I think that this page tells you.
Oh yeah, all the possibilities for it. All right, great. So I'll make sure we get that information to you. I'll do that separately so that we're not taking more time. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out was just that moving forward, as we're talking about the just for this month, when we're talking about schedules, since I was just elected chair, I'm going to be away, literally until July 31st. I'm back, but I can remotely be helping to set the agenda. But just so you know, I'm
When are you away again?
I'm away Sunday through Thursday next week. I'm away the week after, Tuesday through Thursday, and then I'm away. I'll send you all the dates. Yeah. But and then I have a mini vacation. So and I'll be pretty tied up in different states, needing to be present to them. So, but there'll be in between moments, and I might end up relying on your assistance. So I did just want to mention that, but I will be back for the August 1st meeting. And if there is something that you really need, make sure that you just text me. But in the meantime, so if there is something that comes up via email. So I'll put all that in an email, but I wanted to just give you a heads up on that. And then Justine I gave you a shout out last time, and I didn't get to pull it together for this time, but we'll see if we can kick that to August 1st. But you had that lovely, like, advocacy, like, lay out some numbers that were very kind of, so I think you had sent them to Kate Hogan.
I did. So I sent an email to both Kate and Jamie Eldridge, and just when I was working with Michelle and with Mike Guzzo about just looking at the historical aid that we've gotten in the past through state aid, plus what our charter assessments have been, plus what our special ed assessments have been. And this particular year, it was really striking. So this particular year, we historically get about over $200,000 in Chapter 70 funding. And this year, we actually, I think we were supposed to get 250 and we got like 40,000. So we lost $200,000 in from the state. We had, I think, $256,000 additional assessed for the charter schools, and then our special ed commitments went up by, I think it's $850,000. So in 1 year, there was all of these almost out of control costs that was added up to about $1.6 million. Mm-hmm. So, when we're looking at that, I speak for one member of the Board of Selectmen myself, but, we're looking as hard as we can at the budget and at the our town budget, but it really does need to be part of a larger conversation, because a lot of those things are things that we just don't have control of. So.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about that information was so striking. I just felt like that would be really great to be able to in some way share with the community, and I don't know if that would be like at our next school committee meeting. Yeah, so Justine had just given me a hey, I just want to make sure you're aware. I sent this, and I think at the last meeting I said I was going to send it to all you, and I apologize. We're now like 50 emails in from that. No, I don't know that I did. So in any case,
I can resend it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Get to the top of the list.
And then, unless I star it, but sometimes you even lose that system when you're in the middle of all of it. So in any case, I just thought, I don't know if it would end up being, and that might be something that Michelle offline we could kind of discuss to see, because obviously you're living this every day and you were nodding your head, and Justine was taking it upon herself to consider this as she's thinking, recognizing that we all need to be having these conversations. This is our budget subcommittee.
Excellent.
So, so we'll be able to start having those conversations there as well. And budget subcommittee is an open meeting, so everyone is aware. So anyways, and as you're pointing out, huge drivers in this budget and so we too need to be looking as closely as possible to being stewards of this budget for the town.
And I would suggest, because I also had conversations this week as part of the MASS conference, looking at future projections. The issue particularly around foundation formula is, because if we are not a foundation district, the foundation formula bills that are going through and change that is going through the House and the Senate will not help us. This is a trend that will likely continue, given the financial resources of the town, the demographics of the town, and things of that nature. We are one of those districts who are in the middle of the foundation formula review, where we are not going to be helped by the changes that are there. So I think it's something that's important that we not only consider for the fiscal year 21 budget, but something that we need to consider long term about what are the resources that we want to allocate in this town and to what purpose.
Like, just for an example, I think I spoke about this a while back when we were talking, when we first found out we weren't getting foundation aid. We had literally missed foundation aid by 3%. And that's, on the phone with Robert Hatch, and he was like, let's go through your numbers. Like, Colleen and I, went through every single number and tried to see if it was something that like we had missed or we could get. And it's really because of the size of Maynard and the demographics of Maynard, we're at that tipping point. So like where the last few years we've relied on foundation aid and got foundation aid, we just hit that point where we're not getting it anymore. And I think this is the first year, I believe since 2010, that we have not received foundation aid. So
Well, that was one of the things that when Mary and I went to Dan Hill, that we put in our letter to all the different.
All the nuances that
Yeah.
about Maynard,
Yeah.
you know, the limit and just development and the lack of commercial industry and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think this is one of the reasons why I think that having a strategic planning subcommittee,
Yeah.
you know, thinking about long term and all those things are not beyond just budget next year, you know. But I think I don't know. I will have another conversation, but that just really echoes that, you know, at a district, how can we, you know, plan strategically?
Well, Bob McCarthy has been saying it for as long as I've known him, that we really need to start really
More long-term
looking long-term, not
Yes.
just for next year, but what do the next 5 years look like, what do the next 10 years
We have
look
like turnover, just we have a committee, just kind of helps keep that going.
Yeah, two things. Do you mind if I send this? I did find it when I did search for your name.
Absolutely.
And then I'm thinking like Maynard March on the Hill at some point.
Oh yeah,
I
I'm right here
mean,
with you. Yeah, that's, yeah.
like really consider that as a
the idea
community
that we're not
activity.
kind of the recipient of any positivity from this foundation budget makes me crazy.
We do better under the governor's budget than we do under the proposed budget by the,
The Promise Act.
we do better under the governor's formulation.
I've been going to the Fund Our Future rallies and hearings and things.
That's the
and
Promise
that-
Act. That promote. Yeah,
That's, and I can forward that information too. I mean, even if we don't go to support the Promise Act, at least we can be
Our
informed as to
presence.
how it's gonna affect us, and I don't know, maybe we get in touch with the people who either offer it or who are against it and see what they propose as a solution.
I've seen some districts have like town on the hill. You know, like they've gone and met with. I don't know if that's something that we could, you know, explore as a district as well, like Maynard on the Hill, where we can, you know.
Hadn't you gotten in touch with a
Right,
couple
and-
people that spoke?
Right. And
Or have them come out here.
Right,
Some
that we
towns,
were trying to,
and I've seen that also.
Right,
They have some people
right,
come out.
he did, when he got up and spoke, I forget the gentleman's name, I've got it at home. He had said he will come out to communities, but when push came to shove and I reached out to them, he's too busy.
oh, well, I think that
So I
the
think
time
we need
frame,
to-
but I think the time frame, you were trying to get him to come within
No,
like
I told him we were totally available whenever he could do it, and yeah. So, but I think we need to.
Well, maybe we need to
push
do-
on
Yeah,
that.
we need some pushing there because that's
And there have
sitting
been,
around.
there have been towns, because I know Justin, when he was on the board, he was talking about Lexington, I think it was, that they were, or there was, you know, it was like a collaborative of different towns that they were.
That's the Fund Our Future. They have that sign on. That's part of like the teachers unions and the parish unions are all. all
We sent
for
one
that.
off too. for
Yeah.
school committee, but,
I wonder if Kate or Jamie could help us with
might have better luck with
getting
getting
somebody. to-
especially after she saw the numbers that.
Yeah.
Justine put out.
Did they reply to you?
I actually had a conversation with Kate, so, and I mean, she was gonna look into it more. I have not gotten an official reply from Jamie, so. But that's, I mean, he's good, he just, I catch up with him occasionally.
Thank you. What's that?
That's it. I had, thank you to Emily again.
Absolutely.
And Jennifer, if you could get me information on the accreditation for this superintendent, so that we have that for our interim, when we're going through our the information
The
Today,
accreditation?
today when we were talking, we have some,
Is that what it's called?
some applicants that are from out of state, for instance, like.
Right.
Oh,
right
the
now.
certifications.
Yes,
Got
right.
it, got it, got
That's
it.
what
Yes,
certifications for us, because some of the applicants may not even qualify.
Correct.
For the interim and then also
Right.
for the superintendent, just so that we know that.
so what we will be doing tomorrow and on Monday is we're gonna be putting the packets together, and it will have that information about their certifications and whether they meet
Oh, okay.
Massachusetts. Yes, so we will
Okay.
have that, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And also, just so that you know, we're meeting with Charles on Monday at
Oh,
1
great.
to help.
Okay.
We asked him if he could help us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe if you could have all that stuff.
Ready for one?
Actually, if we could, love to have it tomorrow so that I could even hand deliver to the search committee so that they have a chance to look at everything over the weekend.
So the search committee should have, I had sent that
Yeah, all
out, that's
but
there.
that was everybody.
Right.
And you're saying that there might be some people that might not qualify.
Oh, what I can do is I can put in there, I can put a document that's
Perfect.
identifies who's there,
That would be great.
who's
So if
not.
you
Yep.
can, is
I
that
can do
possible
that.
for tomorrow?
Yep,
'Cause-
absolutely.
'cause, Mara was gonna send out a note to everybody, these are the, this is what we're looking at
Yep.
on Monday, and oh, by the way,
Yep.
take a look at all the resumes this weekend.
And I do have 2 additional applications that came in via email that I will put in the folder as well.
Okay, great. Will it be a separate, or are you gonna add it to that?
It'll be a separate, so what I'll do is I'll create an application folder, so all of the applications will be in there.
Okay.
We do have 1 new school spring application as well, and then we'll have an additional documents folder. In the applications folder, I will put a document that lists all of the candidates and whether they're certified or not.
Okay,
Thank you very
great.
much.
Thank you.
That's very helpful.
That's it for me. I talked about the Green Meadow Future Committee site. Also from that meeting with Stephen today, just wanted to emphasize when the school committee does take that opportunity to do community outreach, he wants to make sure that there's a lot of legal things that he wanted to make sure, but most importantly, he wanted me to highlight was that things cannot be deleted. It becomes part of public record. So that is where the website piece and being thoughtful, having protocols as we develop whatever communication it is. And he provided some very interesting examples of other districts that have gone awry in that way.
Yeah.
The other thing that he mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, and I've seen this at university, where putting people's names, out there, people, can create invoices and then try to, invoice the district for something like, I guess this is an experience that something happened to him, and I know at university, even though, so just being thoughtful about when you put names out there, it can be, it's searched anywhere, because it's public accessible publicly. And that the default is always the website, so there's really no posting directly to social media. So it goes to the website first, and then it will be pushed out from there. And I think that was it. Oh, he did create a photo, which I haven't shared yet, for the school committee to use. And then when it goes to Maynard Public Schools, he's going to have a filter. So people wanted to see like right now there's technology. You can filter will be school committee, and there could be posts that will be for school committee communications that go out. And then the other thing was I'm still awaiting the proposal from HYA. As we had our conversations about our training and looking at protocols for staff presentations, I really was interested in trying to get that going. And one of the things that came up is there's a template that just to make our meetings more effective and information that we receive in presentations. A lot of districts have a template they will give to the staff and say, these are the questions when you're presenting information that would be, we would like to, the school committee would like to be answered. So it would be like budget considerations, all these other things, but it really helps guide, I think will guide the conversations and make our meetings more effective and possibly less questions that come up ad hoc. So I think that's something that I, really would want to see. Yeah, I created a draft one, and at some point, can look at it. But I thought that would be really helpful to consider as because I know through the years we've struggled. People present things, and there's a lot of questions, and so this clearly what was being presented and what community is looking to hear is sometimes a different breakdown there. So I'd like to be able to try to take steps to work to make them more effective. And then the other part was talking about, and I looked at Carlisle. They have a long-term calendar of planning the budget, the meetings more strategically. I thought that was really, again, two things that I really liked. Yeah, kind of like sooner rather than later, because I think it will position us for the year in a really good place. And then finding a way how we can put that on the website, but thinking about, like this meeting will be talking about budget,
Well,
and
also
then,
helps people that are presenting to have plenty of time to prepare,
Right.
and that kind of thing.
right,
Just
yeah,
help
we fill in the other.
around.
Yeah, it just seemed like it just made sense, and it makes the conversations and the community obviously know that what we're thinking of, how we're planning long term, not just the next meeting only. So, and that's really it. And just also thank you, Emily, for your time this evening. I know it's late, but I appreciate it.
So, if that's all that we got, then I'm going to say that we are going to move into executive session without intent to reopen into a public meeting, and that's per Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21(2). And as part of that, we will do a roll call vote. So, yes, Lydia, yes, Carl, yes, Natasha, yes. Great, thank you. Thank you, everybody.